Back we are then on TVS Eurogrip presents ESPN Cricket for Auction Day, powered by Kisma Gaming. We had to abruptly, of course, call time on the first live show that we had of the day, given the incident surrounding the auctioneer, Hugh Edemides. We're delighted to inform now, and as I think many of you would have picked up on social media and on Twitter, the BCCI also with an official statement that Mr. Edemides had a little trouble with his blood pressure and therefore will be resting it out. The medical team has attended to him, and the auction is all set to resume after lunch break was taken. So any minute now that the action will resume in Bangalore, and we have you covered as we did in the first few hours of the day too, with Wasim Jaffer, Daniel Vittori, and Gaurav Sundararaman. So we're going to get ready now, and it was, well, as it turns out, it came at a telling point. If you just strictly go back to the auction itself, Wanindu Hasaranga was being aggressively bid for, and the bid had reached 10.75 crore with Punjab. So that is where it will resume now once the auction is back and running. And we know that Charu Sharma, now known broadcaster in our part of the world, will take over the auction proceedings the rest of the day. Has had an association with RCB too many, many years back. Wasim Jaffer was playing for them. So we wait for Charu to take over proceedings, and we will be with you on that from there on. Let's recap what's happened, shall we? Look at the teams, look at the business that was done. If you've already been following our live blog coverage from the morning, we have you well covered on that front too. But Hasaranga is a great story now, and now that we've had a little time, we can discuss it. Rajasthan were actually one of the teams that was still going for him. A number of teams were going for him. But as we look at how the squads are shaping up, lots of top order options there. Devdutt Padikkal, Yashasvi Jaiswal, Sanju Samson and Josh Butler, of course. Good money paid for Shimron Hetmeyer and Trent Bolt and Ashwin, two players picked up by Rajasthan in the marquee set. So they've spent heavily on the overseas contingent. Let's take you through some of the other teams as well and tell you what's going on. Sunrisers Hyderabad and Mumbai Indians are yet to pick up any players. Harshal Patel will go back to Bangalore, where Faf du Plessis has also been picked up by the side that will also be looking for a new captain, remember, in a world beyond Virat Kohli, the captain. So du Plessis picked up at 7.25 crore and Harshal Patel at just under 11. Punjab with Mayank Agarwal will now have Shikhar Dhawan partner him. Arshdeep Singh and Kagiso Rabada form two, well, you could say short pace bowling entries into your playing 11. Good money paid for Rabada in excess of 9 crore. Dhawan as well picked up in the opening marquee set. Lucknow, a lot of people believe they've done the best business so far. Certainly this panel seems to suggest they've had a good day. Marcus Stoinis and Bishnoi, along with Rahul, were retained. They've added Quinton de Kock, Jason Holder, Deepak Hooda, and Manish Pandey. So lots of all-round options for the side that's going to be coached by Andy Flower and also has Gautam Gambhir in the think tank. Speaking of Gambhir, Kolkata have managed to pick up some of their former players, Pat Cummins and Nitish Rana, going back to Kolkata, and they've also spent 12.25 CR on Shreyas Iyer, record signing from the auction so far today. So they spent a good chunk of their money. They've got just 20.5 crore left, but we'll see how they go going forward. Gujarat Titans, with Hardik Pandya as captain, have added Mohammad Shami and Jason Roy to Rashid Khan and Shubman Gill, who were also retained. Otherwise, they've been relatively quiet. Roy picked up at base price. Shami in the marquee set picked up for 6.25 crore. Delhi, they've managed to get they've managed to get David Warner. We're thrilled to get him at a little over 6.5 crore, and have also been interested for a number of players, not been able to get anybody else, but the Capitals have managed to pick what we thought was the steal of the marquee set, Warner at 6.25. Chennai have got Dwayne Bravo and Robin Uthappa back from the team that successfully won in IPL 2021. No surprises at all as to what Stephen Fleming and MS Dhoni are thinking there. Uthappa at base price, Bravo at 4.4 crore. And like I said, Mumbai and Hyderabad still haven't done any business yet, so we'll see how things go there. Let's talk about Wanindu Hasaranga for a little while. It's a lot of money that's being spent on a player like Hasaranga. Dan, before we took a break, you said that that's actually, you wouldn't mind it. He is a unique sort of player in terms of the skill set that he has to offer, but now we're entering the crazy territory in terms of money spent.
Now we get a chance to think about everything we've said, and I suppose all the franchises get to think about, did I really want to pay this much money? They've had time to think and deliberate over this certain player. But look, the skill set is there. The skill set is a 10 crore player, I believe. I think, particularly if you feel that he can be a good enough batsman like a Holder or a Stoinis who can fill in that 6 or 7, because the bowling's without question, it's the batting. Can the batting elevate his potential to another level. And we've seen it with Sri Lanka prepared to take some chances on him and see that he can be a striker for them. So I think whoever ends up with him, whether it's Kings 11, RCB, or Sunrisers, who we sort of predicted early on, I think they will see him as a proven all-rounder and hope he can grow into that role.
Looking at those three teams that were looking for him, Punjab seemed to really be keen on somebody like Hasaranga. They did lose Ravi Bishnoi. We thought he would be a player that they would manage to try and keep. Hasaranga in a team which already has a couple of overseas slots that they've paid heavily for. Kagiso Rabada, rather the only overseas slot is Kagiso Rabada. But Hasaranga, would he fit into the setup from what you know of Punjab?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely. That's why they're going so hard at him. They've lost Ravi Bishnoi. They'll definitely look for the wrist spinner. But the price tag, that surprises me. Somebody who comes in with a very big, price tag can affect the game. We've seen it in the past. So somebody who's not played under that pressure, that can happen that has happened to many other players. So now the bid is still on, and he's going to go for even more. So that is going to be interesting. But he does bring in lot to the table. He's one of those guys who are going to play all the games, and you can build your season around him.
Now, we already mentioned GS a little earlier, Jason Holder becoming the most expensive player for West Indian at an IPL auction. Wonder if Hasaranga's already comfortably in that league with Sri Lankan players. With the Malinga, I don't think was ever paid that sort of money at an auction. So fair to say Hasaranga's making some history for Sri Lankan cricketers at an auction?
100%. And before that, Dan, overseas spinners seem to be raking in the money.
Good to see. We're back.
You were waiting. You waited the entire hour of this break to come back and tell Dan Vittori this. We joked about this in our preview and our countdown day coverage. So yeah, carry on, GS. Big payday in store for Hasaranga. Where does he likely end up now? Punjab, Bangalore, Hyderabad all wanted him.
Yeah, it looks like I don't think RCB will go further. It is with RCB right now at 10 points. At 10.75, it's with RCB, I think.
It's with Punjab as per our live blog, unless that's been changed. But yeah,
okay.
It's 10.75. Right. Anyway, let's assume. Where do you see fitting well now?
So I think, look, Chahal is the key here. People who cannot afford Chahal have to get a backup. And if you pay so much for Hasaranga, obviously he's going to be part of RCB's first 11 plans. And both teams need him pretty badly from the looks of it. So they might go a little bit more. And again, the price point is not because of his Hasaranga, the cricketer. It's more to do with two teams desperately chasing a particular skill set, and that happens. So Hasaranga is just a beneficiary of that. We've seen this happen quite a lot of times. So many mystery spinners, Rashid Khan, remember long back, Sachitra Senanayake from Sri Lanka went for a huge amount. You had Sunil Narayan. So there is some attraction towards this. Not everybody is like Rashid Khan, but Hasaranga has proven at the highest level. Even in the World Cup, he was the leading wicket taker. So it's worth a punt because we know how important these players are to the combination of a team. As in, if it works, it's a great asset to have.
I'm trying to think, Dan, when we spoke a little earlier in the break, why there was such a long chat on tables before Hasaranga's bid kept moving. It moved slowly. And I'm trying to think of what that chat could be like looking at players to come. Obviously, you have calculated, you said that they've factored a little money and clearly they're going to be spending more on him. So they're just reworking things. Now that skill set where there's Adam Zampa to come from the overseas spinners, Imran Tahir, and then there's the likes of Rahul Char, Yuzvendra Chahal. Is that the league you're comparing Hasaranga with?
No, I don't think so. I think you have to put him in the all-round category. I think that's what's elevating him to this price point. And those other bowlers are obviously fantastic bowlers, but it's just the skill set, and it's the skill set that every franchise is desperate for, and it's the ability for it to change the dynamic of your team. Every game you go into, that 6-7 spot is sorted, and when that happens, it makes team selection so much easier. So this is purely about Hasaranga's batting and what a franchise perceives he can do, because I think, as we said before, his bowling speaks for itself. His bowling is on a par with the Zampas of the world, who's obviously a very good bowler. Chahal's a different category because of his domestic status, but it's his batting that's setting him apart.
Yeah, absolutely. Now the auction has resumed. Pictures on Star Sports again coming through to all of us. We see Charu Sharma picking up the auction, and First and foremost, we're all just relieved and delighted to know that Hugh Edemedes is doing all right, and we're quite sure he's being well attended to by the medical team. So thoughts with him to get to his best health as soon as possible. And it looks like it does look like the resumption is going to be between Punjab and Bangalore at Hasaranga's current bid of 1075. I'll just remind you again of where their purses stand at this point. Bangalore, who were busy with Harshal Patel and Faf du Plessis so far, had 39 crore going into this. Punjab Kings have 54 crore. They haven't bought anyone since the marquee two signings of Dhawan and Rabada. And the other team is Sunrisers Hyderabad, who we've said multiple times now. 68 crore was their balance going into the auction. They still have all of that remaining. So Mumbai Indians have been quiet along with the Sunrisers, and you have the minimal purse now for the likes of Kolkata and even for that matter, large degree Rajasthan Royals, who've also been busy today. So at 1075 now, Dan, if could you possibly imagine what this sort of break would do to the franchises? They were anyway expecting a lunch break, but would it in any way have helped or hampered plans when you have that sort of abrupt break in the auction?
I don't think so. I think it'll be purely around Hasaranga and the teams that are bidding for him, and what is their play from here, and whether they need to speak to owners, whether they need to recalibrate and say this is the right thing to do, and then obviously give the teams that haven't been bidding a chance to say, do we want to come in at this price point? So I don't think it will affect anything else apart from what happens with Hasaranga.
Very well. So we resume now. Looks like the Punjab Kings and RCB are the teams that are looking into this. Now, GS, wonder what you make of Dan's comments that he is being looked at more in the all-round category. So perhaps someone we should have been looking at in the same breath as a Mitchell Marsh, Jason Holder. We didn't mention because there aren't too many spin bowling all-rounders, are there?
Yeah, but he's played some good knocks in the ODI format. I haven't really seen him do so well yet in the T20 format. I would still keep him at a number 7, number 8 maybe. I don't know if he does bat in the top 6 at times, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see how much of his batting is used and how well he bats. So if he does, that's a huge bonus, like Dan said.
So we've got a sale here. It looks like Bangalore have him. It's at 1075, and he has gone to RCB. So interestingly, along with Glenn Maxwell and Faf du Plessis, you think that's 3 overseas players sorted, and Hasaranga goes back to, again, a team that he did feature for, albeit not with much opportunity in the last IPL. Let's get reactions on that. Wasim, Hasaranga to Bangalore at 1075. Lots of money.
Yeah, it is a lot of money, but I think it's a good buy. Like I said, he's a good player. He's somebody who's going to bat number 7, number 8. He's going to make useful runs. He's obviously not known for big 6 hitting, but he does bat. But I think it's a good buy, definitely.
Dan, would you have been more keen if you were an RCB to say, let's get Chahal back, familiar, we know what he's all about, or would you have said, now let's move on, Hasaranga gives us more?
I don't think this rules Chahal out. I think they can still have the ability to do that. But I think the fascinating bit is that RCB had Hasaranga last year, and they gave him 2 to 3 games, I think, and then just left them out. So they saw him firsthand. They got a feel for what he could be like at the IPL, and they discarded him in terms of selection, and then prepared to pay this much money for him, which I think that's the fascinating bit. So, like we've talked about, when you pay this much money, he should be first choice, and they've proven that may not be the case.
GS, simple point, isn't it? When you had him last year, if you valued him at this much, you could have probably looked to keep him.
Continuing along the similar lines, you could have even retained him. So the thing is, if you actually look at RCB, what's very interesting is they've bought back Harshal and they've bought back Banindu at both 10 crore plus, right? And they let go of Chahal and Harshal, obviously, at that point in time. And they retained Siraj. So now, this is when, after Chahal's bid, maybe I'll do the math and I'll kind of try to see if it would have made a lot of sense to retain one more player. Because they have I guess, not estimated the kind of prices that these players are likely to go. Then Harshal, I can still understand. He's uncapped. He might have said, "I don't want to be part of the retention list. I would like to go in the auction." Very fair. So you should have budgeted for him. But Chahal, 11 crores is close to 9 crores he would have got if he was retained. I'm expecting around 10 plus over here, which is not too much of a difference compared to a Harshal Patel, right? So. And if you know that you're desperately looking for Hasaranga, so
Yeah.
these are things I don't know. We're not privy to whether this was a decision taken before the auction or if you rate Hasaranga so highly, maybe they just estimated him to come at about 5, 6, 7 crores maybe. And that's where now maybe they might have a regret because you had a fourth overseas slot. In fact, for even 6 crores, you could have retained Hasaranga and maybe he would have been more than happy to get
That's
that.
exactly where I'm coming to next. I mean, you can't imagine, while GS is right, we don't know what the conversations were, but I can't possibly imagine Bangalore telling Hasaranga we want to retain you and Hasaranga saying no, I'm going to go into the auction. It just seems like the kind of thing which, had an offer been made, if you value Hasaranga for someone you're willing to spend over 10 crore for, then surely the math would have asked you to keep him in. I guess then what can we assume, that they had not assumed to pay this sort of money and yet they have? And why does that happen then?
I'm not sure. And to the other point around Chahal, I think Chahal did an interview saying that he would have been happy with 8 crore or something like that. So whether you could have got him that retention, whether that's just talking to the media at the time, it feels like RCB had a lot of tough decisions to make, and I think that's the other difficult bit around some really good players and Harshal, Chahal, Hasaranga, as we're talking about now, Parakal, and they probably had dialogue with AB de Villiers as well for a long period of time to see whether he was going to come back. So it's not always easy to make these retentions all happen. And in hindsight, you think, why didn't they do this? But you never know those conversations. But I think the Chahal one will be the one that they could potentially regret.
All right. Another former RCB player is being bid for at the moment. That's Washington Sundar. So Hasaranga is going to have a nice payday. Very happy for him. So good luck to him for RCB once more in IPL 2022. Now, Washington Sundar, where's his game at the moment, Wasim? You thought there'd be a lot of interest for somebody like Washington Sundar, who is, of course, being looked at as someone who can do a job in the ODI team for India too. Bid is already clearing 5 crore now. We're seeing the Gujarat franchise show some interest, the Ahmedabad franchise. You expect Washington Sundar to do well?
I think so. I think he's a very good player. Somebody who can bowl in the power play. You need to probably finish him by 12th or 13th over. He's one of those bowlers. He can't bowl beyond that. But he can bat as well. Very young. He can play, number 3, number 4, number 5. He's definitely not a finisher, but I think he's a very fine player and somebody who bowls in the power play, bowls after the power play, and keep it tight and gives you wickets up front.
Delhi Capitals and Gujarat Titans at the moment are having the two-way bidding for him. So it's a straightforward one, GS. He does Ashwin's job, I guess. Delhi Capitals can clearly find room for him, and they've got enough in the kitty too.
Yeah, and Wasim makes a great point. Like I mentioned in the preview show, if you want a good partner for Rashid never bowls in the power play. He never bowls. He gets hit a lot in the power play. So this is how you kind of use him. You get Sundar along with Rashid. It could be a very, very good bowling attack, right? They have to build that very good bowling attack as we discussed. So Ahmedabad thinking right. And Washi is the beneficiary again. We'll have to see how well he does, and he can bat as well. He's very young. It feels like Washi's been around for a long time. He's just 21, so there's a lot of time with him, and people rate him pretty highly in his batting skills as well. So maybe we've not seen the peak. It's a good investment for sure.
Yeah, 7.5, and this is where Ashish Nehra has made that typical bailing out sort of sign that he's out of the race of it. So it's not going to go Gujarat's way. Looks like the bid was with Delhi Capitals, who would have looked to get him for 7.5. And I think now, suddenly, if there has been another franchise who's entered at 7.75, is that the Sunrisers, who, of course, have to start building a group of Indian players. At some point, it has to happen. Shreyas Iyer is gone. Mohammad Shami is gone. Devdutt Padikkal has gone. A lot of other Indian players have gone. But
maybe they'll get the Indian team attack back, Ranak. Washi, Chahal, Shardul, who knows?
Who knows? Deepak Chahar is still to come. We're all expecting him to go for a really good amount. Avesh Khan's much later in the day. But the Sunrisers have jumped in with 7.75. That makes sense.
Sunrisers.
You expect them to go through them. Yes, Wasim, please.
I said sunrisers are the late risers today. They might as well have come after the lunch anyway.
Yeah, yeah, the sun has risen very late today for
Yeah.
Hyderabad. No, but it's fair. I guess at some point you've got to make use of this massive purse you've got and go all out, even if you're paying a little extra. You surely would have anticipated that, Dan. They bailed out from Harshal Patel. They bailed out from another couple of players, I think, which they could have easily gone had they had the muscle. Washington Sundar.
So I suppose they've guaranteed themselves Ishan Kishan, which is a starting point, which obviously helps with a lot of things because of their ability to outmuscle everyone. But I think Washington Sundar, yeah, I think Washington is a great buy. I think you can't go wrong with him in terms of building a core and having that all round spin option. But as you say, they need to enter the fray shortly, and whether it's they're waiting for Kishan and Deepak Chahar and a few others, but there's some big good players that they've let go by where they could have easily picked them up because of that financial might that they do have.
And it looks like that will be the first player that will go the Sunrisers' way. Yes, at 8.75 crore, Washington Sundar will don the orange of the Sunrisers Hyderabad in the next IPL. So that's a pretty decent payday for him. He goes to the Sunrisers, where, well, he's now the only capped Indian player they have, along with and in the company of Kane Williamson, Abdul Samad, and Umran Malik. So Washington Sundar to the Sunrisers. Wasim Jaffer, makes sense. 8.75 fair value for someone like Washington Sundar.
I think a little bit expensive, but he's an Indian player after all. So, he's one of those certainties in the team, and he's going to bowl 4 overs and, decent enough batter who can bat between 3 and 5. So, good buy, I would say. Good start, at least.
GS?
The price tag definitely is something, again, all-rounder. He has batting potential. And he does a tough job of bowling in the power play, which is a very unique skill, again, very tough skill. So, an Indian, totally worth it. I think they're not much competition for these slots. So, pretty good day for Washington.
3.2 crore is what he was at for RCB last year. So it's a significant pay hike for Washington Sundar. Would fitness at all come in the way, Dan, when you look at a player like this? Even though he's young, he has his share of fitness concerns. He has missed a part of the IPL season too. Do you tend to think automatically the value of a player goes down, or is that perhaps something you can put aside in a big auction?
I think so, just because of the skill set once again. It's just the all-round ability and the ability to complement your team and make selection easy. Sundar's one of those players who makes such a difference to selection. And I don't think we can go too far away from that. That teams pick 9 to 10 players so easily. They just fall onto the team sheet and everyone's happy. And then you spend 2 to 3 days deciding on the 11th player. And Washington Sundar's one of those players that makes life so much easier. So apart from his skill set, obviously, I think it's just that he just complements everything else that Sunrisers will eventually do. We don't know what they're going to do because they haven't got that many players yet, but eventually we'll see.
And in that same skill set, up comes Krunal Pandya, who, of course, had a massive payday when he was picked up by the Mumbai Indians. We've already brought his name up as the most expensive player the Mumbai Indians went for at a little under 9 crore. And very quickly, his bid seems to have already gone to the 5 crore mark, and it continues to go on. So I'm very keen just to see when the yellow paddock comes up for new players. It came up for Uthappa and Dwayne Bravo. We knew that. And whether they get a player or not, it doesn't matter. But the fact that CSK are going for Krunal Pandya, what does that tell us?
It tells me that they know that Ahmedabad will come in at some point in time. So let's just raise the price. You have Jadeja there. So I don't see Chennai even needing Krunal Pandya.
Yeah, okay. Interesting you bring that up. Although we know MS Dhoni and Stephen Fleming love their all-rounders in CSK, and they have liked players that offer both skill sets. So many times where MS Dhoni, works his bowlers in ways where specialist bowlers don't tend to bowl or bowl more than an over at times. So we know this has happened. Jonty Rhodes is on the Punjab table. He's worked with the Mumbai Indians franchise and Krunal Pandya extensively. They seem very much interested in Hardik's brother. Krunal Pandya, Wasim, where do you see Krunal Pandya's own game at? He's capped for India. We thought that this is a player on his way up. He could take that place that, there's a point where Jadeja wasn't in favor and Krunal Pandya had opportunity. Seems to have fallen out of the Indian sort of reckoning, India team reckoning. But where's his game at the moment for you?
I think it needs to go up. I think this IPL holds a lot of importance for him. I'm sure he'll be looking forward to it wherever he goes. I think this IPL holds a lot of importance. he's gone and played for India, and then obviously he's got dropped. He didn't had very good IPL, so I think this IPL, wherever he goes, holds a lot of importance to him.
We're also now seeing two more teams enter the bid for Krunal Pandya, one of them being the Sunrisers. So I think they are seriously waiting to pick up the pace after lunch. Their accelerated auction has begun at the second session here. And the other teams that seems interested again in is the Lucknow franchise, who clearly like all-rounders. It looks like now that they have put in a plan that they want to get as many players with multiple skill sets. But the Sunrisers, after getting Washington Sundar, Krunal Pandya, Dan, also would be part of a plan. So clearly they're going for some of these players that were going to come a little later on in the auction.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have to really. I mean, they have no choice. I think Krunal Pandya is a fascinating player because, and this is why players bounce around franchises till they find their right fit. And I think Krunal Pandya at Mumbai was the perfect fit because he was the sort of the third all-rounder who wasn't expected to do too much, but when he was put into a perfect situation, he was fantastic, whether that was to sneak up the top of the order to attack someone or to match up as a bowler in certain situations. At Mumbai, that allowed him to do that. If he goes to another franchise, will he still be as valuable when he doesn't have that, when the expectation on it is on him to bowl 4 overs every game, to bat maybe 5 or 6? So I think this is a fascinating time for franchises around these all-round players who previously aren't expected to do amazing things. They're just supposed to be complementary players, but then you put them into you're the number one player, go and fulfill was up to 7.25, go and fulfill that role for us because we expect so much of you.
Would that be a question almost for all the Mumbai players though, Dan, more than some of the others? CSK have a different sort of philosophy and route that they take. Mumbai is the one team which we think if they split up, we're keen to see. We're even wondering what Hardik Pandya is going to do now as a leader and captain, which is a bit of an unknown entity. Krunal Pandya, is that specifically for the Mumbai players, you think, this year?
Possibly. I think it's a fair point. And also maybe the Wankhede Stadium wicket comes into that as well, that they're so used to playing on that. It's a surface that's consistent and they understand how it plays. So you've got a whole package when you go there, a really consistent setup, coaching staff, etc. And they have a style that they play. And so when you try and replicate that somewhere else, it doesn't always work. So their value may be at their highest when they're at Mumbai, and so therefore when other franchises try to pick them up, they expect too much of them.
We thought Shah Rukh Khan GS might be one of the highest paid uncapped players, but if we look at what are the options for Indian middle order players who are all-rounders, who can also finish games. We keep saying finishers are hard to find. Usually you're either going to an overseas player to do that job. But amongst the Indian options, is Krunal Pandya sort of high up on that category of middle order batters who can finish games?
Yeah, definitely. And he's played, like Dan said, he's done a lot of clutch performances for Mumbai. So these guys are experienced in the IPL. They may not perform well. They didn't get a long run for Team India, but they perform extremely well in clutch situations. And Krunal can do multiple roles, and he maybe in a new team he might be given more responsibility. He might bat at number 3. Recently in an interview, I think he said one of the his best batting performances have come at number 3. So with Hardik in, maybe he'll get a bigger responsibility if he plays for the Titans. Otherwise, we'll have to see how they use him. But any Indian all-rounder is gold dust, Ronak. That's how it is today. We saw Deepak Hooda, we saw Washington Sundar, we saw Akshar Patel being retained. Now it's Krunal Pandya. So spin all-rounder, you don't have a pace bowling all-rounder, so go behind spin bowling all-rounders.
What about all the non-cricketing reasons for Gujarat Titans to want Krunal Pandya, Wasim? Hardik Pandya as captain, Hardik Pandya and Krunal Pandya as a package, the marketing aspect, going to Gujarat, the Ahmedabad franchise, all those things. How much of a sway do you think they'll have for this particular selection, getting Krunal Pandya to Gujarat?
I think so, and I think probably Hardik being the captain, he'll feel more comfortable playing under him, and he can probably get the best out of him. I'm surprised that Lucknow is going after Krunal, having Deepak Hooda is there already, so that they are not going to be very easy. And
well, Gautam Gambhir would love to be in charge of a locker room even today, wouldn't he? To just play referee. But yeah,
similar situation to Ash and Butler being in the same team now. So that is going to be interesting. But I think, like Dan said, Dan made a valid point that if he if he's been put a pressure to bowl 4 overs of his quota, where in Mumbai, sometimes when you see a lot of left-handers, you see Kunal Pandya doesn't bowl 4 overs. But
Yeah.
when he's picked as one of the main spinner or maybe a couple of spinners that play, and if he's asked to bowl his 4 overs, and you find the other team has got a couple of left-handers, then I feel there's a question mark whether he can complete those 4 overs. So that is something which I worry that Kunal Pandya is a bowler.
If
Uh,
you had to pick a team to not bowl 4 overs in now, it's Lucknow because you've got so many bowling options. And Kunal Pandya has gone there, 8.25 crore. So he becomes
yes.
their second most expensive player at the auction today after Jason Holder. And they continue to pile on the all-round options. They already had Marcus Stoinis, and today they've added Jason Holder, Deepak Huda, and Kunal Pandya. So yes, if you've been following the news in domestic cricket, there was a massive, let's just call it disagreement between Pandya and Huda, and eventually at Baroda that led to Huda moving to Rajasthan. So all of that happened, and it got quite messy. And they're going to find themselves in the same dressing room now. So the work is cut out for management. Let's get reactions. Krunal Pandya, they seem to be really keen on their all-rounders. Dan, the Lucknow franchise.
Yeah, I suppose trying to follow the formula of successful franchises in terms of CSK and Mumbai. I think it's an easy decision when you put them together. And I mean, the question is, I just talked about how much pressure there would be on Krunal Pandya. Now it's almost the reverse. Is he going to bat 8 and not bowl too much? So there might be a real low ask of him because of Stoinis and Holder and those guys batting a little bit higher up in the order. So it'll be fascinating to see how his role plays out with those three all-rounders probably certain to play every game.
GS, were you surprised that Hyderabad didn't show more of an appetite or Gujarat didn't show more of an appetite for him? I thought he'll at least get somewhere near the previous bid that he got, the big payday 8.8 a few years ago, but they backed out and he's gone to Lucknow now.
Yeah, surprising, but I guess you don't want to also spend so much on Kunal, considering that you already had Huda and stuff for Lucknow perspective. From a Lucknow perspective, from Ahmedabad perspective, and SRH, yeah, I guess they had the money, but yeah, it also depends on fitment and how much you pay and what is he going to do with that money pressure and stuff like that. So surprising, but if you see the kind of range is the same between a Washi and a Kunal. So teams are all thinking pretty similarly. Ranges between 8 to 10. So it's good. But I'm really liking the look of Lucknow. They have a lot of options. It's always good to have so many options. You don't know who's coming in with form, who's not going to come. And this is a pretty decent Indian core, which a lot of teams want. And I think Gambhir and co want a lot of all-rounders. So that's looks like that's how they're building the squad. And they've kind of got their top whatever all the players they picked are going to be part of their first 11, right? So it's a pretty good team up there.
While Mitchell Marsh, another player we thought would be significantly looked at by the franchises, comes up. It's quickly gone to 5.5 crore. The two franchises with the significant Australian influence on the table, Tom Moody of the Sunrisers and Ricky Ponting of the Delhi Capitals, have bid aggressively for Marsh early on. So the bid's at about 6. But I'll just come back to Wasim to close that point that he raised. In fact, it's with Pandya and Huda on whether these are even things that franchises consider. Do you think at all, Wasim, or do you think it's the IPL? There'll be enough people to make sure the priorities are right here, because sometimes who you like and dislike at all can affect the dressing room environment.
No, I don't think. Obviously, the franchise doesn't think like that. And IPL, obviously, Ronak, it's known to bridge gaps. It did with Bhaji and Simons when they were playing together, and I'm sure this will do the same with Huda and Krunal. So I hope they patch up while playing together. It's going to be awkward, but I'm sure. I hope that they bridge the gap.
GS makes the point that they're picking everyone who would walk into the 11. Let's hope that after that whole squad is ready, that we're not looking at one place for Pandya and Huda to compete in, because it's similar sort of skill set that they offer, and you pay that sort of money for Krunal Pandya, you're going to start with him. But we'll find out. Right, Mitchell Marsh at 625. Now, this is an interesting case, Dan, because I know how highly Mitchell Marsh is rated among some of the overseas contingent that form part of the IPL machinery. But there's always a question on Mitchell Marsh's injuries, on Mitchell Marsh's bowling form. He's been successful for the Scorchers primarily as a bat. He's been transformed into this power-hitting bat for Australia at the top of the order when they won the World Cup. But is he still a valuable asset in the IPL?
Well, I think you have to value him as a batsman. I think the bowling's a stretch at the moment, and I think this is the case of a player who is held in such high esteem amongst coaches and particularly overseas coaches. Because I think if you went on his IPL record, and GS can correct me on this, I don't think he's got the strongest IPL record.
He's not even. He's just played 20 games.
Yeah, so I think this is purely on the likes of Tom Moody or Ricky Ponting, Stephen Fleming. Those guys who have seen him up close in the Big Bash for a number of years and see that talent, and they probably see the performance for Australia in the World Cup final and obviously a build up to that, and the fact that he's been in such good form that this leads to this rather than backing any IPL form or subcontinent form.
Well, you can carry on that point, Dan, because he has gone to the Delhi Capitals, so he's going to play with Ricky Ponting, under Ricky Ponting, and with the likes of Rishabh Pant. Now, they did lose Marcus Stoinis, who was picked up by Lucknow. Is he doing that sort of role, Marsh? Do you see him playing a middle order role? Because his batting seems to have transformed after he was pushed up the order, which already seems a crowded place in the Delhi side.
Yes, and that's what is he going to slot into that 5 or 6 role where probably the value is not as great because he has been so good up the top of the order for the Scorchers. Stoinis didn't bowl 4 overs every game, but he did bowl some tough overs for them. And I'm not sure that Marsh can be expected to bowl those tough overs. I think he's 1 or 2 in the middle of stages at the most on conducive surfaces. So the value has to be in him batting in the top 4 and being destructive like he has been for the Scorchers in Australia.
Do you see that happening, GS? Can they have Pant bat 4 and Marsh bat 3, or the other way around, 3 and 4? They've got Warner and Prithvi Shaw at the top of the order. Can he still find a top 4 role at a franchise like Delhi?
I'm pretty sure that's the plan, right? You want to use your player in the best role possible. That's very important. Warner, Shaw, Mitchell Marsh, Rishabh Pant, and a couple of middle order players they pick, all-rounders, make it a pretty good team. But with Marsh, you don't know what you're going to get. So I'm generally not personally a big fan of that price point at which he's gone, because in India, in the subcontinent, he's still not like really performed as well as what you would expect. And against quality spin, again, we don't know. If Stoinis kind of got the best under Ponting, got the best out of Stoinis, maybe if he can get the best out of Mitchell Marsh with Warner around, maybe things could turn around. But if he doesn't bowl, then they have to figure out a balance again. They have to figure out who's going to be that all-rounder for them. Right now, if you look at the squad, you have 3 overseas picked in the 11, Warner, Marsh and Nokia. So they just need one more between the number 6 to number 10 slot, which they have to find out.
Wasim, your quick reaction? Mitchell Marsh going to the Delhi Capitals?
I think he's a good player. I think he's a probably number 3, number 4 player for me. Obviously, he hasn't done well in the IPL so far, but I think the Mumbai wickets might suit him with the bounce that they offer. It will be pretty close to the Australian surfaces, and I think that's what probably suit him. And Ricky Ponting factor again is a huge one, because I think he'll probably use it better than most coaches. But I think he's got potential to do well in IPL.
All right. Marsh goes to Delhi. Mohammad Nabi doesn't go anywhere as of now, so the Afghan captain is not found a bidder. Again, is that something that franchises may look at to complete their quota tomorrow evening, Dan? Mohammad Nabi is this highly regarded player in white ball cricket, but doesn't always get a lot of game time.
No, maybe the age as well. Franchise is worried that it's starting to catch up with him a little bit, but I still feel like he's a performer. And when you have someone on your bench like him who can come into specific games, specific matchups, I think there's still value in him. Like we've been talking about the whole time, he's an all-rounder. He just balances out a team, and he understands how to play. And from all accounts, he's a very good bench member as well. So I think teams will look at him second time around.
Okay, we have entered the all-important set number 4, which is wicket keepers, and that's because a number of us have predicted Ishan Kishan to have franchises really break the bank. If there is someone who could challenge Chris Morris's 16.25 crore, it could be Kishan, and there certainly is money to play with, even though Kishan comes in a lot later than the marquee players. As of now, though, Matthew Wade is in this set. Now, GS, if you could run me through this set, please. We keep talking about Indian wicketkeepers also being rare commodity. You've got some overseas guys in this as well. Wade's there, Bairstow's there. Nicholas Puran features here too. Just take me through the wicketkeeper set and what you're expecting.
Yeah, I think there are some interesting names there. Nicholas Puran, obviously rated highly in T20s, and has never like really taken the IPL by storm yet. But he because he can wicket keep also, he's a pretty interesting talent to have. And Ambati Raidu is a very interesting name. I expect a lot of teams to bid for him. He was been top notch. He's been CSK's underrated hero, if you ask me. Remember in 2020. He didn't play a few matches. He won the first game for them against Mumbai, and then he got injured. He didn't play matches where CSK lost quite a lot of those games. So he's been top notch. His strike rate's good. He gives it all for his team. So CSK will want to buy him back. So I'm curious to see what Raidu does and where he goes. And I
Well,
expect
he's
even Mumbai, a team like Mumbai, remember, have to replace Surya Kumar Yadav. Sorry, has to replace Ishan Kishan. If they
yeah.
don't get Ishan Kishan, so this is where the order matters, Ronak, so much. If Ishan Kishan had come first, maybe Mumbai would have gone all out and seen, okay, now they have to think if they have to go behind Raidu or not.
Yeah, well, it looks like Raidu certainly has bidders. Chennai are back in for him. Delhi Capitals are interested for him. So we'll find out. In all that, Matthew Wade has gone unsold. Heroic performance in Australia's World Cup campaign. You thought maybe this is a guy who's developing into that specialized finisher sort of role, but not of interest to the franchises, Dan? Any surprise at all, Matthew Wade?
No, I think it just comes down to that overseas batsman who, if he's not something incredible, then franchises will wait, and that's why I think I look back to like someone like Jason Roy, who franchise got at base price, who you could argue has he does have a far better record than someone like Mitchell Marsh, but teams were prepared to go to that sort of extent for him, whereas Roy is a proven performer all around the world. And so to grab him at his base price, I think that's where the value is in these overseas batsmen and probably fast bowlers.
Now, Mumbai are in the game, so too are Chennai. Curiously, Wasim is listed still as a wicketkeeper. I don't know if that's Raidu saying that he can still be used for his wicket-keeping skills, even at this stage of his career, because the likes of Robin Uthappa didn't enter as wicket-keepers. They entered a batter's slot. Here you've got Ambati Raidu, perhaps still saying, franchise, if you want an Indian keeper, I could do that job.
Yeah, just bringing the second skill set to your game, just to entice the obviously the franchises. But he's a fine performer, like GSS said. He's a proven performer. Even last year he had a very good IPL, and no surprises that so many franchises are interested in him. And experience does count a lot. Won't be surprised that he goes back to CSK again.
Yeah, we're at a little under 5. We're at 5 crore now, just as I look. Sunrisers have gotten in too. It's an interesting one, Wasim, in terms of where Raidu's own personal game has evolved at 36. Of course, dramatic fashion that he decided to react after the 2019 World Cup omission. Came back, played franchise cricket, has had a great 2020. And even now, when he's been shunted a little lower down the order, you're seeing Raidu turn into this 7-8 ball impact player if you must. How do you think that kind of role is when you get to your late 30s as an Indian player? Doesn't play a lot of domestic cricket either.
Yeah, he did play the Vijay Hazare Trophy for Andhra. But I think he's one of the very rare players that who can bat from 1 to 6. I mean, depending on what combinations you want to have, and he can still excel in those roles. He's done that at number 3. He's done that at number 5 and 6 for Chennai, for Mumbai. So it just goes on to show that he's a very high quality player, and he's a team man as well. Even though he's 36, he's a very fine fielder. So you've got a value for your money if you buy him.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who's won the IPL with more than one franchise, Ambati Raidu. So there is experience in that kid. It's up to 625. Jess, is that what you expected in terms of Raidu, with the order playing its part too, like you said?
Yeah, I think so. I did expect all Indian players to rake in good rewards. That's what's happening, as we can see. Washis, Kunals, Raidu, DK, all these guys will get, because you need that Indian middle order, right? You saw Manish Pandey going. He listed himself as a batter. Maybe if Raidu had listed himself as a batter, we don't know if he would have made the first cut. But if he had, maybe he would have got a similar kind of bid. So I think now people, the more the narrative goes about experience, and they've seen with Chennai how it's been successful, that will obviously percolate to all the other teams, right? And So again, a lot of this matters which team a player plays for. I still think Raidu for CSK may be way better than Raidu for Delhi or Hyderabad. I don't think the same level of performance can be extracted by every team. So this strategy may not really work. Like RCB picked Brendan McCullum from CSK to Bangalore, and he had a bad season. Watson did that with Rajasthan to Bangalore. So a lot of things matter. So yeah, we'll have to wait and
No,
see. As of now,
I'm
CSK have a chance. Let's
I'm
see.
with you. I'm with you. I'll tell you why. Because I'd love to throw this to Dan that the CSK model, which could influence other teams, and rightly so, because it's a successful model, I think is predicated also on the fact that Fab du Plessis played so well for them and he's at 1.6 crore. Ambati Raidu's played so well for them, but he was on 2.2 crore. And suddenly, when people say, let me get Ambati Raidu, but I'm getting him for 6.5, 7 crore, or suddenly the price just goes 3, 4, 5 times fold, and you expect them now to be a key member of your side, whether that in any way changes whether you view the player as a success or not.
Absolutely, and it comes back to that point where we talked earlier on about overseas fast bowlers, where teams will, like CSK and Mumbai, only go to a certain level, and they build these players up. They obviously taste success because they're part of a team and they're in a winning culture, and then all of a sudden, that performance transferable, or is it because they're in the right fit, like GS mentioned? And I think that's what CSK do so well, and I think that is purely around selection as well. They tend to pick the same team no matter what for 14 games. They may make one or two changes here and there, whereas other teams just aren't afforded that luxury. So, and Bodhi Raidu where did he go? I'm not sure. He's gone to
Chennai. He's gone back to Chennai.
He's fine. He can do what he wants.
675. 675 is the amount, 6.75 crores. So Raidu goes to Chennai.
Okay.
Let me get a quick reaction from Wasim Jaffer because I think the next bid's going to take some time. Ishan Kishan has come out. All eyes on Akash Ambani and the Mumbai Indians. Nes Wadia for the Punjab Kings is interested, and that is only the first of, I think, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 franchises that I may mention as the Kishan bid rapidly moves to 5. Let me get Wasim's reaction to Ambati Raidu going to Chennai for 6.75 crore, which is 3 times the pay he was on last year, Wasim.
I think Chennai just want to buy the same kind of players they had last year. Even though they want to spend more on them, they still want to have that same combination. So interesting tactics, but I think obviously MS Dhoni knows what he wants and what he can get out of them. So I'm happy that he's gone back to Chennai because he's still got a couple of seasons left in him, I feel.
All right, GS, quick reaction for Raidu going back to Chennai.
Yeah, I think it was expected. I knew they would go heavily for him, but I think they also got him at the right price point. That's the mindset, like Wasim said, in terms of who do you want to back? Do you want to back youngsters? So there'll be other teams who looking ahead for the long term, and they would have scouted some youngster there to play for another 10 years. But as CSK are still looking at, okay, let's push our squad by another 2 years and see what happens. So they've got Bravo, they've got Uttappa, they've got Raidu. So they're trying to retain the same formula. So yeah, good. Right. They managed to get it. This is where one thing, Dan, what surprises me is why aren't teams trying to break this strategy? Why are teams allowing these teams to get back, like Kolkata getting back Rana and Cummins, CSK getting back these players? Can't teams just? Is it because they feel that they won't be useful to their team? I don't see too much of that happening.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Nijis Rana, he went for 8 crore, so I think teams did try. Cummins probably the same. I think you're talking about someone like Bravo or Uttappa, and also Raidu. Look, other teams just, I suppose, don't value them as highly, and they don't, like CSK, they just want that continuity. They understand what a player can provide for them every time, and the other franchises probably don't have that information, so they don't rate them as highly. So I think there's merit in just chasing CSK around an auction and just following them and just bidding on whatever they do to either take their player or disrupt them a little bit, because obviously they've been so successful, and they've been successful even after we've probably sat back from auctions and said that's not a great team, and that team's gone on to win the IPL. So I just don't think teams value the same things that CSK value, and the starting point to that is around continuation of selection for each individual.
All right, let's focus our attention on the Kishan story, right? This is what's got a lot of us excited. The first tussle was between Mumbai Indians, Kishan's last franchise, and the Punjab Kings. Punjab Kings have a lot of money still to play with. They all eyes on the balance purse now, which is still significant for a number of teams. Hyderabad with the most, they've not even stepped in yet. Punjab also with a decent amount of money still up their sleeve. And Mumbai Indians haven't bought anybody, so they have all their 48 crore intact, which is where they would have liked to be when Kishan pops up. So it's touched 10, and Hyderabad have jumped in. Sorry, Rajasthan have jumped in as well. So Rajasthan Royals finally looking at some Indian players too to partner what's already quite a busy auction day for them with Padikkal, Hetmeyer, Bolt, and R. Ashwin. We have touched 10 crores for Ishan Kishan very quickly. Now, the simple question here is, at what point do Mumbai say we can't do more, right? What is that number? They can break the bank, yes, but by Mumbai's balance purse, what do you think that number is? GS, 48 crore, how far can they go up?
I'm guessing around 14, 13, 14 max.
And
Not
would it
more
be
than
worth
that.
it then 14 leaves them with 34 for the rest of their team? They've got 4 solid retentions, but would you go with that, or can they even go higher? Can they go 16, 17, 18 for Nishan Kishan?
I think the fact that they haven't secured any other players apart from their 4 retained puts them in a little bit of a predicament. I think, is it Lucknow going with them? No, sorry, it's Gujarat going with them now.
Gujarat now. Yes, it's Gujarat now.
So
this is the point GS made just right now about CSK. Everybody knows that Mumbai Indians want Ishan Kishan. So they wouldn't mind having him at 11.50, 12 if the bidding stops. But they also know Mumbai are going to go up, and if nothing else, that at least busts a large part of their purse. So Dan, where does this stop making sense for Mumbai for you?
Oh, that's a good question. And to the CSK point, CSK stepped away from Faf at 7 crore. So I think there is a time and place where you do have to step away from your players. But because CSK have picked up those core players on the side, they allow themselves a little bit more time, whereas Mumbai are in a slight predicament because they only have 4 players. So they obviously value Ishan Kishan so highly. I'm fascinated by the fact that they need to talk to each other so many times, because before he came out, we're going to 14 crore. Let's just let's not talk till we get to 14 crore or something like that. So
Wasim, another thought in this is, and I heard some views on this, from within our Cricket Info staff as well, that it's not like Kishan's the greatest T20 player. He is terrific, he's talented and whatnot. But it's not like you've got AB de Villiers sitting there in an auction at his prime, or Chris Gale. You've got a guy who had an excellent 2020 and a pretty flat 2021, who is still young. Now, where a lot of us are predicting he's going to break the bank, he's going to be the highest bid and whatnot. But where do you balance that argument out? Is it worth breaking the bank for Ishan Kishan?
I think because a lot of teams want a wicket keeper, and obviously he can offer again, the batting dimension, because he can bat at top of the order. He's batted number 4, he's batted number 5, and he's a very useful cricketer. And the season before that, 2020 season, yes, I think he's got more than 500 runs. So he's one of those guys who's got a proven record, and somebody as good as Ishan Kishan, and being a wicket keeper, I feel he's going to break the bank, and he's already has the most expensive player today. Yes. But
you can't pay him more than Rohit.
Now, I was just going to say, I was literally coming there, that he's now crossed Jasprit Bumrah, who's at 12 crore if he goes back to the Mumbai Indians. At 14 crore, he's already ahead of MS Dhoni, ahead of Sanju Samson, who was the number 1 retainee there. If he touches 15, he would be where Virat Kohli is. So we're talking incredible money here for Ishan Kishan. What was that stat we brought up for Yuvraj Singh? How much was that again, GS? The highest ever for an Indian?
16.
16. So at 14.50, guess who's jumped in? The Sunrisers have jumped in at 14.50. Now this gets interesting, right? We get into the end game now for Ishan Kishan. Mumbai Indians are happy. 14.75. The paddle goes up from Akash Ambani, and the Sunrisers camp looks at each other. Brian Lara's there. Mutaya Muralidharan's there. You've got Tom Moody, because the owner is there as well. And we know that Srinath Bhashyam, our good friend, is also on that table. Back he is at the Sunrisers. GS, has he had a word with you on how much they're spending on Ishan?
Not really, but I think based on the patterns, we did predict that Sunrisers would go for Ishan Kishan. Look, all teams need keepers. Who are these keepers? This is always a challenge, which is why the Quinton de Kock bid baffles me. It went back to the same team which already has a keeper in KL Rahul. So I just don't understand. Maybe unless they've scouted the next Ishan Kishan somewhere or the next Quinton de Kock, I don't know why people uh, are doing this. And
I'm
just
with you.
again,
In fact, what about Mumbai? Mumbai could themselves have gone for De Kock. And
yeah, they
if
could have.
that, hmm,
And now thinking about it, Ranak, Mumbai could. There's no way Surya Kumar Yadav would have gone for so much. Just think. Let's think logically. He's not a. He's just a pure batter, and he was a competition for Ishan Kishan in terms of retention.
yes.
So there is definitely, I think Mumbai missed a trick there. They should have retained Ishan Kishan and kept Surya for the auction. Maybe the IPL form of 2021 kind of biased them or influenced them to take a call over Surya. He was making the Indian team squad consistently, etc. So I think Mumbai missed a trick there, and if they don't get Ishan Kishan, I would be very interested to see how
Yes.
they go about in their auction strategy. But they could have retained him, but yeah, they've
I'm with
broken the
you.
bank
I
for
was
the.
going to say, GS,
I'm with you,
how
Fred.
much of a
Yes,
better
yes, Fred.
player is Ishan Kishan than Matthew Wade?
How much?
How much of a better player is Ishan Kishan than Matthew Wade?
I don't know, but based on the current, not much to be very honest.
No, not
Just
much.
that
But I mean, that's the value
Fred,
in the local player. But you wonder if
Fred,
you could
I'll
yourself.
now break
You
it
go.
now. I'll break it now. Kishan's going back to the Mumbai Indians. 15.25 crore. It was something we thought could happen. We were also quite surprised when neither of the new franchises managed to bag up Ishan Kishan when Mumbai chose not to retain him. GS's point absolutely valid on whether Surya Kumar Yadav could have been a player they would have bought back cheaper, even if they would have gone all out for him. But Kishan back to Mumbai, 15.25, easily the highest paid player of this auction, surpassing Shreyas Iyer at 12.25. Doesn't break the record that Yuvraj Singh held and Chris Morris held, but those were not looked at as great bits of business at the time. We'll find out about Kishan. Let's get reactions. Wasim Jaffer, Kishan, 15.25.
I think he'll be the happiest guy today. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, I mean, they look like teams were hell bent on having him, and he's just that he was the player in demand. A lot of teams needed wicket keeper, and he's got benefited from that. So he won't mind that.
Hmm. Dan,
He's a fantastic player, and I think sometimes we conflate the money with how good a player is, and it can confuse us. But I think he offers real value to the franchise. He's obviously played at Mumbai for a long time, understands the venue and the franchise, and that ability with his wicket keeping. He's a fantastic T20 cricketer. It's just fun to debate the money, whether you want to spend that much on him.
I bring GS in to now compare this with other franchises who perhaps could have paid that sort of money and got Kishan there. Why did it not make sense for Sunrisers who've been so reserved for so long to not go that much higher, 16 maybe, and get Ishan Kishan, and why they've all sort of bailed out where they don't value Ishan Kishan as much as the Mumbai Indians does?
I think already you're paying your. These players are priced at an inflated rate, Ronak. Already, before the auction started itself, we know that certain players are going to be priced at an inflated rate. So you don't want to. You can only go certain. And we've seen so many cases of people failing than successful IPL careers at high price points. I think with its numerous names we all can keep debating. So so many things can go into that player's head. Things change. Obviously. Uh, we will never know how it feels, but in terms of getting that money, getting that responsibility, and playing for a particular franchise, maybe Hyderabad feels that no, if that happens, his performance may not be live up to the expectation. So we rather go for someone younger, experienced, maybe a Dinesh Karthik now, whom we might get for 8 to 9 crores, and he'll maybe do a job for us. So already
What
you're paying a inflated price, so I'm sure they have some amount in mind. You don't just simply give out money just because you can.
what about the same question for Punjab, Wasim, who you now understand their think tank a little better? They've got 54 crore in their kitty. They went only till about 7 for Kishan. They were willing to pay a lot of money for Kagiso Rabada. They paid 8.5 for Shikhar Dhawan. Could they not have shown a little more hunger for Kishan?
They should have actually, and being an Indian player as well. Uh, I'm surprised that they're going at Johnny Bairstow as well. You
Hmm.
got DK coming in later. Indian player obviously gives you more selection options. You can then play different internationals. So I'm surprised, but even they could have gone a little bit harder on, because they've got the purse available. They should have gone a little harder at Ishan.
Interesting. So those are franchises that could have gone for Ishan Kishan. They chose not to. It was something that was predicted. Uh, as Johnny Bairstow is being bid, Sunrisers, his former side, are into it. 4.8. Punjab are with them as well. Let's just take a quick comment on where this leaves Mumbai now. So you've got 5 players and a balance of 32.75. Now, does that leave them significantly at a disadvantage? Do you think they'll be all right? Because it's not going to be easy to pick a lot of other players now. Yes.
Yeah, that's where I think their scouting network, the confidence of their scouting network becomes very important. Remember, Chennai and Mumbai generally don't spend heavy on overseas fast bowlers, so they would have identified a few overseas quicks to come at base price. So we'll know that only tomorrow. Maybe one more Indian international, they might pay maybe another 10 crores, maybe they can afford to do that. And after that, it's a lot of small purchases, 50 lakhs, 1 crore, 2 crores max, and then try to build a squad. And from the looks of it, I don't think teams are looking at a 25 squad strength. I think 18, 19, 20 should be more than enough to kind of optimize the spend. If at all they have some money, they could pick some 20 lakh players later. But that's how they would think. And like I said, 80% of the budget for the first 13, 14, 15 players, uh, which is what I think a team like KKR and MI are thinking. So we have to wait and see which fast bowler do MI get at a very cheap rate, and then we'll kind of make sense of this.
Dan, your thoughts on what this does to the Mumbai Indians for the rest of the auction, which surely they would have planned for. They seem very happy to get Ishan at only 15.25. If you look at their reaction.
It feels like there's been in this situation before, and I think the fact that their retained players put them in such a good stead with particularly Rohit and Bumrah. I think that allows them luxuries to make some decisions that maybe other franchises can't. So that backed up with Jess's point around their scouting networks and their proven ability to find players will give them some confidence. So they're 5 players into their first 11, and they're 5 very good players. So they know, we have to give them the credit. They know what they're doing.
Wasim, Mumbai tend to surprise us every auction with a few young unknown players who turn out to be great sort of picks. Do you think that what Jay said, that they have a lot of faith in some players they may just pick up at base price, which allows them to then spend this kind of money on Ishan? Are they still in good shape for you?
I think so. I think they spend a lot of time and energy on the trials, on their scouts, and they have given some quality players in Bumrah, Hardik Pandya, Kunal Pandya. They picked them up when they were nothing. So I'm sure they've got few of them lined up. And I don't mind the Indian players getting picked on very high prices, because like I said, the Indian players make the core of the team, and then you pick certain international players and spend more money on them, which you are pretty sure are going to play in your 11, or they are part of your thinking. You don't want to spend too much money on foreign international and bench them. So I don't mind the Indian players getting paid more, because they are going to play a lot many games compared to other internationals.
Well, life has changed for Ishan Kishan. I mean, it did earlier as well. He picked up good money even in previous auctions, but 15, 25, $2 million. So we're looking at the first player to hit that double million jackpot in this year's auction. So we'll see how he goes. He's in the familiar shades of blue for the Mumbai Indians, who now have 5 of their players that have won 2 out of the 3 titles in the last 4 years. Let's have a look at 2 out of 4 titles, rather, in the last 4 seasons. Johnny Bairstow's at 675, meandering along slowly and steadily. Hyderabad seemed to be interested in him. He did turn out to be one of the, you could say, almost pleasantly surprising success stories, Dan, in terms of English batters who took to the IPL very easily. Lots of people like Alex Hales and co don't get bigs, but someone like Bairstow just seemed to take to the IPL successfully.
Yeah, it was that partnership with Warner as well. I think they came together so easily, and obviously with the wicket keeping as well, which elevates all these batsmen when they have that string to their bow. So I think he's a fantastic player, and particularly on the better wickets in India, he's such a clean ball striker that I think franchises have confidence in him that his skill set can translate into subcontinent conditions. So there's no wonder he's pretty popular. I think he's just been sold, but yeah, he's an impressive performer.
Right. Bairstow to Punjab for 6.75. So this is something we need to react to now. Punjab once again keen to spend some money and pick up the overseas option. So Wasim, give me a reaction from your former side. They've picked up Rabada today and they've picked up Johnny Bairstow, who you think along with Mayank Agarwal, Shikhar Dhawan, they already had two set openers. So Bairstow becomes a third option for them.
Yeah, and it does surprise me that they've got Mayank and Shikhar to open. So where does Bairstow play? Uh, so again, it confuses me. But I think if at all, if he's in the scheme, then one of them will bat number 3. But Johnny Bairstow, again, a very fine player. And like I said, you want to spend money on international players who you think are going to make your 11 consistently. So I think Anil definitely, likes Johnny Bairstow because he plays spins well, and we can hit the ball hard, and he's had a few really really good IPLs. So does make sense that Anil has backed him to come to Punjab.
Yes, Dhawan, Agarwal, Bairstow.
I think they're looking at Bairstow, like Wasim said, as a spin hitter. I thought they would either, if you look at the same data after Hetmeyer, it's Bairstow. So I can understand. I think Bairstow plays at number 4 for England with Butler and Roy opening. So I think Bairstow will slot in at number 4 and not as the opening slot. I think Dhawan and Mayank, you can't break that out, and it's a right-left combination as well. So Bairstow will bat at number 4, and it's a great pick. He's again proven in the IPL. And he can handle the middle overs. They tried that with Maxwell. Puran failed, and maybe now it's going to be Bairstow's turn.
You normally think, Dan, that you try to bring a player to play the same role he plays in franchise cricket and the international cricket level, to try and bring the best out of him. No point trying to give him a different sort of role. Here you've got Bairstow, who's got a successful record opening in IPL cricket, does a different sort of job for England. So what's the best way to look at a player like that when he comes up?
Well, I think it summed it up well. Bairstow's a great player in that role, and I think that's where he's going to be at his best. So if Punjab can't provide him that role, then he's not as much value to them, and that's where I sometimes get confused with some of the franchises around the things they need to build up, and the Punjab obviously need to build up a really deep Indian base to give them some opportunities, and putting all this money into Rabada and Bairstow, both great players, but does that actually help them build a team? Does that put them both at their best skill sets? And only time will tell, but it feels like unless Bairstow opens, he's not as valuable.
Dinesh Karthik's come up. So we've got the two teams from the southern part of India going hard at him, Bangalore and Chennai. Karthik has played before for RCB's played before for a lot of teams. But interesting that CSK are keen on a Dinesh Karthik GS. At some point, of course, the conversation will come up. The man to take the gloves after Dhoni, who will captain after Dhoni. But it seems like Chennai want their local flavor of Dinesh Karthik, or at least are interested in him.
More than Chennai wanting Dinesh Karthik has expressed his interest to play for Chennai in almost a lot of interviews, and he kind of he's never. That's one of the franchise which has kind of left him. Having said that, I don't see much of a use of Dinesh Karthik in the CSK lineup because they just got Raidu there. I'm just trying to see which batter they had, which Dinesh Karthik can replace, unless the only slot they require is an opener right now. Otherwise, they seem to have a decent middle order sorted with Moeen Ali, Jadeja, Dhoni, and Raidu as a top 4. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Maybe they want a backup keeper for Dhoni. Maybe, like you said, after a couple of seasons. But let's see if they get him back. Whereas for RCB, it makes a lot of sense. They were looking at captaincy candidates. They don't have a keeper. They struggled for a long time. When AB didn't keep, they had a problem. So they went for Shreyas Iyer. They couldn't get Shreyas Iyer. So now it's logically it makes sense to get Dinesh Karthik there. And they could have captaincy options in Kohli, Dinesh Karthik, and Faf du Plessis, a good leadership group.
Now, you look at that list. They've got Uthappa back. They've got Ambati Raidu back. So you think Moeen Ali is there, Ruturaj Gaikwad there. So anyone can think of a reason why CSK would want Dinesh Karthik? Wasim?
I think as a backup wicketkeeper, probably, even though Uttapa also is gives you that option, but I think he's one of the Indian finisher. I regard him very highly as one of those Indian finishers. And then you can play probably Raidu a little bit higher, and then Dinesh Karthik or Jadeja and Dhoni at later orders. So it does make sense to me. And I don't know, maybe Dhoni won't be playing most of the games. Probably that is one of the things that he's thinking, that he
Hmm.
might not play all the games. So they need some of the replacement for him.
Yeah, I
Probably
mean, it
that.
could very well be for this season. Dan, thoughts on that comment?
I find it, yeah, fascinating. But I think CSK just see it as another piece to fill into that middle order, and they like having those moving parts. They know he can play anywhere from 1 to 6. I haven't seen him run around the outfield for a while,
Hmm.
for maybe next year or so while Dhoni's around. But I think they'll just see him as a middle order finisher, or even sort of sneak into that top 4. That gives them some options. So can't question Chennai.
Yeah, we all learned that the hard way, or at least some of us learned that the hard way. But yeah, there's no second guessing the wisdom of CSK and Stephen Fleming and MS Dhoni. But we do have Dinesh Karthik up to 5 crore now. And between Bangalore and Chennai, it seems to be the only two teams that are going rather hard for him. So we'll have to see what Bangalore's appetite would be for someone like Dinesh Karthik. Let's just have a quick look at Bangalore's side. If I look at that now and just see how busy they have been. You've got Kohli, Maxwell, Siraj, Faf du Plessis, Harshal Patel, and Wanindu Hasaranga. You've got a balance purse of 28.25. Chennai have got a bit more to play with, 34.85, as they've done the business with Robin Uthappa, Dwayne Bravo, and Ambati Raidu right now. Is Karthik the best option for someone like Bangalore, GS, from the keeper options that could come up? Would they then, if they don't get Karthik, would they be then straight away looking at foreign keeping options with not a lot of Indian options available?
If they don't get DK, they might go for Bharat.
Hmm.
He's done the job for them and some familiarity there. But DK is a potential option there because it strengthens the batting. That's keeping has been a problem for them. Middle order, like we discussed, has been a problem. Maxwell, Faf, Kohli, and then 4 to 7 is what you need to kind of build, right? And that's what is currently missing in that squad. So DK fits in pretty well there.
And looks like Chennai have pulled out at 5.5 with the bid lying with RCB. So they probably welcome a Dinesh Karthik. They paid good money for him before and they'll have him back at his franchise. So even though he wanted to play for CSK, which is something GS has pointed out, he'll be going to Bangalore. Is he at all a captaincy candidate, or was that better served sent to Glenn Maxwell, or I don't know who else they'll end up with, Wasim? But we're keeping an eye on that. Who after Kohli to captain? Dinesh Karthik to Bangalore. Is he at all a captaincy candidate for you?
I won't put him into the captaincy candidate because he's done that, and he didn't had a great result with KKR. I think it's better to leave him alone and just do batting and keeping. I see Maxwell and Faf probably are the candidates unless obviously somebody else comes up. But I think those two are most likely to captain. But DK just as a player, I think will serve them well.
Does he fit into the RCB side for you, Dan? He has had a taste of it before.
Yeah, I think if it's at that number 5, 6 slot, obviously take the wicket keeping option as well. I think he fulfills a role that they desperately need, and it balances out the rest of the order. He's been there before, so he understands it. So I think it's a nice buy at that price.
Yes, quick comment before we move on.
Yeah, I think the finisher role is which was very important. It's shaping up well, the RCB squad slowly. Again, the bowling seems to not been given enough importance yet, but that's where I guess they want to go predominantly with a nice Indian bowling attack. So so far so good for RCB.
Ridhiman Saha goes unsold. Also hearing murmurs of what Saha's future could be like with the test team, the only format that he's still being considered for. Wasim, this stage of Ridhiman Saha's career is a lot to like about Ridhiman Saha, but might end up without a franchise, you think, by tomorrow evening?
I think he'll get picked. But
Hmm.
not as the first choice, probably as the second choice. But again, he's done well in the IPL. He's got hundreds in the IPL. He can open. He can bat number 3. So I feel that he is going to get picked maybe tomorrow.
All right. Sam Billings has come up next. Now, in a keeper set where somebody like a Matthew Wade's gone unsold, wonder what sort of appetite there'll be for some of the other foreign keepers. Now, anyone that you think is value, could Matthew Wade have been picked up at value? Dan, just looking at the dearth of keeping options, Sam Billings in a similar sort of league, do you think there's value in just trying to get them at base price?
Yeah, I think so. I think you have to, as a franchise, has to weigh up can I get Matthew Wade at 1 or 2 crore, whatever his base price was, and then go hard for a Deepak Chahar or Krishna or Shadul Thakur, those guys. Because as soon as those teams like Mumbai have gone as hard for Ishan Kishan, they sort of rule themselves out of picking up one of the Indian marquee bowlers. So I think you have to go one or the other. So it's a big name Indian batsman and then probably a low key overseas fast bowler or vice versa. So it's hard to do both, but I still see value in these overseas international batsmen at base price. So they sit on your bench and they can come into the team later into the fold, particularly someone like Billings and Wade who keep as well. So it gives you some options.
Okay, we will see what happens tomorrow for the likes of Sam Billings and Matthew Wade. Very interesting candidate up next now. Nicholas Puran's here, a man who captained the West Indies in Karen Pollard's absence in the ODI series. And I'd love to go to Wasim here. Must have spent some time with Nicholas Puran, who was an enigma, wasn't he? Player who lit the IPL up in 2020 and suddenly in 2021 had that rotten string of scores, number of ducks, just could not get going for old Nicholas Puran. Now, where do you think franchises will be looking at him? Wasim?
I think he'll still get a good price. He's definitely a match winner, and obviously he can keep. So I see a lot of interest in teams. He had a very bad IPL, and that can happen. Once you get into that rot of not scoring runs and the pressure keeps piling up. But I think he's a match winner in his own right. He hasn't set the IPL alight yet, but I think he's got all the potential to do that. Somebody who bats number 4, number 5. He's a very fine player, and he'll be looking for an opportunity to get going again.
Chennai and Hyderabad are the first two teams to be interested in Nicholas Puran. Punjab, I think, had an initial bid. After that, it's been Chennai versus Hyderabad. So MS Dhoni is in the market for a keeping option. He's been busy in this set. CSK have been busy in this set. Hyderabad are keen on Nicholas Puran as well. Let's ask Dan Vittori what Puran's best role would be in a T20, because that seems to be a question mark now. Should he be looked at as just a dasher who comes in the middle order to finish games and have a power impact? Can he bat at 3 and kind of have, be the kind of player that can score 100 of 35 balls, 40 balls if you give him the chance, Dan?
I think he can do anything. And I think from last year's IPL, was it a bad IPL or was he the unluckiest batsman in the history of IPL cricket? I feel like there was run-outs, there were dismissals that went against them. So I don't think teams will hold that against them. And I think you're right in saying that they can slot him in at 3, 4, 5, or 6, depending on what the team needs. And I think he's experienced enough now, and he understands all those roles. And I think he's that aggressive batsman who has no fear. And I think even though he had that tough time last year in the IPL, it felt like he could still come out and play an innings. And I think he has that aura about him. So I think he'll be incredibly popular as he is. And I think teams will see him at his best, and that's a very good player.
Kolkata have entered the fray as well, for what it's worth. Interestingly, they don't have the most money. They've only got about 20 crore, and they already have 3 overseas sure shots, assuming everyone's fit and available, in Russell, Narayan, and Cummins. Hyderabad still seem interested in Puran. CSK seem interested in him. But there's something about Puran playing for CSK that makes you feel like maybe they'll get the best out of him, GS, but that's maybe just a CSK thing.
I don't think CSK bid for a lot of players and they come out at 4 or 5 crores because that's where they can. They're pretty conservative that way, so they understand. Kolkata is very interesting why they're going for Puran, but when you actually look at the squad now, KKR doesn't have a keeper, SRH doesn't have a keeper, and Ahmedabad doesn't have a keeper. Most other teams have one. Who are the keepers coming up? I don't know. You have to settle down for the Saha, maybe like Wasim said, maybe later on KKR may buy Saha for 1 crore. So that's the backup option. They're trying hard for Puran. So this keeper, batter, 6-hitter, all this is based on potential. It has nothing to do with numbers or it has nothing to do with anything else. It's purely potential. And in spite of Hetmeyer and Puran, somehow these West Indians keep getting. I think he's just gone past Hetmeyer as the or Holder as the leading prize earner from Windies. So
Yeah.
I don't know which team gets the best out of these players is very important, Ronak. I think, like Dan said, you can pay how much ever you want, but they need to be happy in that setup. And Puran, Russell, Naren, that's a proper Windies goal there. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
No question about that. And as we just look at the kind of money Nicholas Puran was at, a little over 4 crore, so that's easily doubled now. And we've had a record broken earlier today when Jason Holder was picked up by KKR for 875. You now have Nicholas Puran break that record a few hours later by becoming the most expensive West Indies player at an auction at 950 and counting. Sunrisers valued him at 925, KKR at 950. So what does that tell us about Nicholas Puran, Wasim? And some franchise will have to get the best out of him. Okay, Wasim's dropped out at just the right time. So let me go to Dan for this one. 950, 975. Are you suddenly thinking, gee, can I get the best out of Puran when he knows he's on that sort of money?
I think he'll be fine. I think he can handle that pressure really well. I think he's a guy who will thrive on it. It's just always comes back to the question: if you pick up Sam Billings at 2 crore and then do something else, how much better is Puran at 10.5? I think he's up to now. So that's just a question that franchises have to put themselves to on every selection they make. But I still think he's a fantastic player who can help a franchise immensely.
Well, KKR have requested time, and this is extraordinary because 10.25 is where the bid lies with the Sunrisers, who have a lot of money in their purse still. They are still looking at nearly 60 crore. KKR, if they had to get Puran now, would essentially be using up half their purse that's left. They've got 20 crore left, and the bid is at 10.25. So, GS, why are KKR so keen on Nicholas Puran?
From the way they're bidding, it's clear that they're focusing a lot on the first 11. They need to crack that first 11 right, because like you said, it's almost 10 crores left, right?
And they bid at 10.50. They've bid, so they have 20.50 in their purse, and they bid at 10.50.
So they'll have 10. But look at the players they've chosen. Every single player has to be part of the 11 throughout the season. So that's what they're kind of banking on, and they're at almost 80 crores now at the end of this. So yeah, it might end up affecting them when Russell stays out with the niggle or Naren's not playing. If everything is okay, they have a gun first 11, right? That never happens, though, in the IPL. That never happens. Somebody gets injured, something happens. So I don't know. Again, Nicholas Puran paying so much money. What happens in his head? Whether can he handle this much pressure? It's a lot of things. Very, very surprising move from KKR. To go for such a big cost, but Sunrisers at least have the money and they need a player exactly at that slot, and they need a keeper. So they bid for Bairstow as well. So I can understand why Sunrisers are going for him. But and there's Brian Lara sitting there right there in the dugouts.
I mean, there is Brian Lara there, but I guess this is Plan B being activated, right? You went for Kishan up to 15. You did not get Kishan. You now tell yourself, I'd rather get Puran than at 10 because I didn't want to spend 16 for Kishan. They still have the money. But Wasim, that point that GS makes on KKR trying to go for a guy who would essentially take away half their purse now. I mean, do you pay that sort of money for someone who could or could not be your first choice overseas? You're picking for someone basically in case Andre Russell's not fit, or in case Pat Cummins is not available, then you've got another overseas player to play. But that's absurd money to pay for that, surely.
I know, and I'm surprised that he's getting that kind of money after last year's IPL. And on top of that, I mean, he's a very, very fine player. There's no doubt about it. But he's not won many games on his own.
Yeah.
So he hasn't had a very, very fantastic IPL where he's won games on his own for his franchise. So for him to getting that kind of price and the pressure of the price tag, that is going to play on his mind as well. So those factors, I'm really surprised that he's getting such price.
I mean, 10.75, Dan, and he goes to the Sunrisers. We talk about whether franchises have gotten smarter with time. Does that seem like a smart acquisition for that sort of price?
Well, I suppose you compare it to Bairstow. So they pulled out on Bairstow at 6.5, I think. And so where would you suggest that Puran offers that much more value than someone like Bairstow? It's hard to work out. So Yeah, I come back to the fact that he's a fantastic player, but is a big price. I think he'll be fine with it though.
All right, JS, quick roundup: 1075 Puran to Hyderabad.
Yeah, again, this is what surprises me. Quinton de Kock 6.25. Like Dan had asked me about Wade and Asian Kishan. Look at Quinton de Kock, look at Nicholas Puran, look at Johnny Bairstow. I think not a lot separates all these people. Everybody will have bad days. I think de Kock and Bairstow, both SRH could have gone for, got them at a much lesser price than Nicholas Puran. So, yeah, I guess if they tried, they failed, and this is what you get for not getting what you wanted at that right time. And Puran's just benefited from sheer desperation.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Let's try and recap these squads for you too now. Hyderabad have finally spent some money: 10.75 on Nicholas Puran and 8.75 on Washington Sundar. That brings their balance purse down to 48.5. Still lots of money to play with as we enter another intriguing part of the auction. We're going to have some fast bowlers coming up: Deepak Char, Shardul Thakur, all ready to come in. As far as the wicketkeeper set goes, we thought Ishan Kishan could be the most expensive player, and indeed he has proven to be so. 15.25, lots of money spent for men who will likely take gloves in their franchise. 6.75 crore for Johnny Bairstow, who could very well bat outside the top two now that Mayank Agarwal and Shikhar Dhawan are, you'd think, likely be first choice openers for Punjab. Dinesh Karthik finds his way back to Bangalore to play alongside Virat Kohli and Glenn Maxwell. 5.5 crore the price for him. And Ambati Raidu before that, picked up by Chennai once more, 3 times the price he was on last year, 6.75 crore. The likes of Ridhiman Saha, Matthew Wade, and Sam Billings all going unsold. Right, that's where the team purse remains. Bangalore and Kolkata will do a lot of watching now and have to pick up some players perhaps at base price later on. Punjab still have a lot of money, 47.75, along with Hyderabad. These two teams maintain their, you could say, their financial superiority over the others. Gujarat have gone quiet, 43.75 crores, so they've got a lot of money still. In the 30s and similar range are Chennai, Delhi, Rajasthan, and Mumbai. Lucknow at 24.9. Fairly quiet then. That wicketkeeper set has come to an end, yes. But as we look at the other teams, you did bring up the Gujarat side, the Ahmedabad franchise, who do not have a keeper and did not go for any of the unsold players in that category. A bit surprising, given that they have significant amount of money still left.
Maybe they have some name in mind, where an overseas player who might come in for that keeper slot, some batter who can be a keeper, or they've identified maybe the likes of KS Bharat. Did he come through in the list? Oh, I thought KS Bharat was there in this list. Looks like he's not. Oh,
No,
he's in the uncapped keepers
Bharat
list.
comes in
Sorry.
much later.
Yeah, so maybe Bharat is a guy whom they would be happy with, target him. They might get him a lot cheaper. So that's one strategy, Ranak. You know that these guys are going to go for a lot of money. So why waste time looking at that? Let's lock the keeper slot with someone pre-decided. And just say that, hey, let's go with this guy as a keeper and try to spend on other skill sets. So I think that's how maybe Ahmedabad and KK are looking at it. They're the two teams without a first choice keeper. So that's the only slot they have to fill. So that's Bharat and Saha are remaining. So we'll have to see how that kind of pans out.
Well, to just give you an idea of the kind of wicketkeepers still left, and not really a lot of names with a lot of IPL experience in them. KS Bharat will fall into set number 9, which is the next set of keepers now, which also has the likes of Prabh Simran Singh. Otherwise, nobody else in that list actually has an IPL appearance. We look further down the wicketkeeper set. These are players likely to come in tomorrow. Then you've got a number of the overseas options over there, the likes of Rahmanullah Gurba, Shay Hope, Heinrich Klaasen's played for the Rajasthan Royals before. You've got Kushal Pereira, you've got Josh Philippe, you've got Glenn Phillips and Tim Seifert. So a couple of New Zealanders there. Not a lot of keeping options that excite you, Dan, unless teams have identified that we're going to try a bit of a punt here and take a maverick option. Try and go for Glenn Phillips, try and go for Tim Seifert. And they're probably putting a lot of faith in them because they're going to have to play them.
I think it may be more the case of the uncapped Indian players and how deep the franchises have been with their scouting. So once the 2 or 3 teams that miss out, I think they'll have their overseas keeper as the option, the secondary option. But I think they'll rely on their scouting to to find that keeper that possibly could come into the mix from nowhere, someone that we don't really know, but they've put a lot of time and effort into, and they back them being able to play in an IPL game.
How much does the KL Rahul story sort of influence teams? A number of teams tend to think we don't need a specialist keeper. If he's a gun bat, we go for him, Wasim. Otherwise, we'll figure some of these. We'll find a reserve keeper and give him the gloves and try and not compromise on the 11 just because we have to play a keeper. Because there's always that sort of debate too, especially in 2020 cricket, whether you actually need a specialist keeper bat.
I think you do, but if he is a gun batter, then you can compromise on his keeping. And there might be few uncapped players, I think, who the scouts might have, in their mind. There are few, first class players who are very good batters. So I think they must be on their radar. But I think having an Indian wicketkeeper, international wicketkeeper, somebody like Saha, KS Bharat, Dinesh Karthik, it gives you a lot of, choices to play them and then get your overseas sorted out. That's why probably we didn't see Matthew Wade getting picked, because you are not somebody who are going to go with 4 overseas players with Matthew Wade being one of them. So that is probably one of the reason, Ronak.
Yes, you got something?
No, I was just Wasim was spot on about Matthew Wade.
Yeah, let's look at to set 5 now. It's an exciting one. I know the intensity, energy of the auction tends to drop, but I think set 5 will pick it up because fast bowlers tend to win you IPLs, win you tournaments. That's what a lot of players say, although they invariably captains and coaches are batters and all-rounders, but fast bowlers are key in you winning championships, and they're going to come up next, the seamers. Let's just have a look at that set. The set number 5, there are the likes of Deepak Chahar, Prasidh Krishna, Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, as well as Natarajan, Shardul Thakur, Umesh Yadav, a lot of Indian seamers with experience, and some overseas seamers too. Mark Woods there, Mustafizur Rahman. You've also got Lockie Ferguson and Josh Hazelwood. So it's a nice assortment of Indian and overseas, experienced and inexperienced. How do we see this set going? GS, what's the prediction for this set? Deepak Chahar, big payday?
And Shardul Thakur. I think the two major names to watch out for, Deepak Chahar and Shardul Thakur. Chennai have to buy one of them. I don't see them not buy, even if they go 10 plus. I think they have 34 crores remaining. They have 1, 2, 3. They have 7 players, so they can definitely go for one more really good big buy. Again, they're competing against the likes of Punjab, SRH, and I guess Gujarat, right? Yeah, they are the ones closest to CSK in terms of budget. So it's going to be interesting to see how Deepak Chahar and Shardul Thakur, at least one player all out CSK have to get. Ideally, they would want Deepak Chahar, but if they don't get him, they'll have to go behind Shardul Thakur, or maybe surprisingly get someone like Bhuvaneshwar Kumar and try to extract the best out of such players, which we know happens in Chennai. So.
Is this one of the big changes in the auction over the last few years, Dan? The emphasis on Indian fast bowlers as against more importance, more money being, teams being willing to spend for overseas fast bowlers who you thought had skill sets that the Indians don't.
Yeah, I think so, but I think it's these particular bowlers that have come into the auction after, I suppose, not years have been underpaid, but sort of they've been with Chennai for 4 years now, so now they get a chance at their big auction. I think this is almost this one and probably the next one are the two most exciting sets, because I think there's going to be a lot of action here, not only for Shardul and Deepak Chahar, but I think Krishna will be very popular. I think people will take a chance on Natarajan as well. I think they'll see him at the bowler he was from 2 years ago, and I think Ferguson and Hazelwood are the two overseas bowlers that teams will hope they can get under that, I suppose, 4 crore mark. So I think this is a really exciting one. But Chahar and Shardul Thakur, they really highlight it, and they're going to get huge paydays. It's going to be fun to watch.
Wasim, you going for that? Shardul and Deepak in line for something big in this set?
I think so. I think and both of them can bat. I mean, Shardul definitely can bat. And the Indian element as well. You need to go for the Indian bowlers. You pick the international bowlers when they are 140 plus. So Lockie Ferguson, Josh Hazelwood, they'll obviously come into. Mark Wood again. I feel he'll go. Natarajan, I feel is going to be a question mark because he hasn't played, but I think he'll be raring to go to prove himself. But I think most of them will have a good payday. Umesh Yadav is a question mark to me. But other than that, I feel most of them will go for good prices.
You think even Bhuvneshwar Kumar, Wasim?
I think so. I think just that the Indian element. You can have a foreign international bowler with you, but you need Indian bowlers to be there.
Hmm. All right. As we look at the Indian seamers options, you got Avesh Khan after this. GS Harshal Patel's already gone. Just trying to think of what the remainder quality is in the auction after this set, and how aggressively teams need to be in this. Can they afford a bit of a waiting game for Indian seamers after this set?
No, because look, the way the spending patterns are going, I think most teams want to get their first 11 set, and
Hmm.
your first 11 has to be picked from here. Anything else could be backups. So, in a way, this set kind of will structure a lot of teams on what they want later on. So, this is a very important set. If I would be interested to see if teams can take two of the pacers we have listed in their squad. That will augur very well for them because yes, new pacers are there. A lot of unknown commodities, uncapped players available, Ronak. So taking player A over player B is not a big difference in terms of quality, right? You're not too desperate for anybody in that. If I don't get A, I'll get someone else. I know that. Whereas when it comes to Indian internationals like so Prasid, right? It's a long-term investment. He's also performed at the right time. So if I can get Prasid and Deepak or Prasid and Shardul, it kind of almost my job is done.
Yeah.
And then you start planning for the future. So, very important set again. We'll have to wait and see if it gets split or whether teams are just going to go all out, because then you need just spinners and you have kind of enough money to build almost 8 to 9 players are Indian or are going to be internationals, and then you will have
Hmm.
those two odd overseas players coming in. So a lot of teams are close to completing their first 11. I would say at least 9 players. If you just look at the squads of each team, you'll see that most people have picked first 11 players. All the slightly
Yeah.
dicey players have gone unsold, like Steve Smith, David Miller, Mohammad Nabi, etc. You can get all of them back. So Rajasthan, Kolkata are just like couple of players away. CSK, couple of bowlers away from a complete set. Lucknow also, for that matter. Just another Indian bowler should put them in good stead.
As we just throw up the players that have been picked up, you just have a look at those squads now, and you'll realize which teams you can likely see to be very aggressive in this set. Because there are actually teams that don't have a single Indian seamer yet among their squad, right? There are those that would retain, like Jasprit Bumrah was for the Mumbai Indians, Mohammad Siraj for RCB. You have a young fast bowler like Arshdeep for Punjab and Umran Malik for the Sunrisers. But you look around that league and you see that CSK still don't have an Indian seamer. The Delhi Capitals still don't have an Indian seamer. Kolkata Knight Riders too. They've got some part-time seaman Venkatesh Iyer, but they'd be looking for someone to do the job that Prasid Krishna has done for them. Rajasthan Royals, another team that do not have an Indian seamer among them. They have to secure the services of Trent Bolt. CSK with just Bravo as a seam bowling option amongst the business that they've done today. So they need to find someone. Delhi also need to get somebody. They had Avesh Khan, and they also had a number of Indian options in Ishant Sharma and Umesh Yadav, but they need to get that Indian seamer going. One of the positions that was under contention was that extra Indian seamer. Kolkata too need to get an Indian seamer to partner the likes of Pat Cummins and Varun Chakrabarti along with Sunil Narayan. Gujarat Titans did pick up Mohammad Shami. You think that's a pretty good price now? If you look at how things might go in this, Mohammad Shami picked up in the marquee section a little earlier for 6.25 crore. And as we look at Lucknow as well, they are also in the market for, you think, for an Indian seamer. Haven't picked up anybody just about yet. Right. T. Natarajan's an interesting one. Has spoken in the press recently saying he's feeling good and back to full fitness, which is, I guess, the right thing to say this time of year, just before the auction. We spoke a few years back, I remember, JS and Dan, that left arm seamers are so high on everyone's list. Is that still hold true, or has that taken a bit of a reality check? Because you don't always get a left arm seamer that's up to scratch.
No, I think they're looking. The teams are just looking for quality, aren't they? And I think Natarajan at his best is obviously quality. So I don't think franchises will discriminate in terms of they don't just want left armers, but they just want good ones. So look, I think if he is back to his best, that unique skill set that he brings of basically being able to nail his Yorker most balls is something that's so highly sought after. So whether he's been through some trials, I'm not sure if he's played any domestic cricket at all to allow franchise to have a look at him. But I think they will see him at his best, and therefore he'll be highly sought after.
Wasim, T. Natarajan, when a fast bowler gets these injuries fairly early on in his career, and of course Natarajan is 30, so he's no spring chicken, but at the same time he has had his share of injury troubles. Do you still show a lot of interest in him?
I think so. I'll put a bet on him because what I read in his recent interviews that he want to be the old Natarajan. So I'm sure he's working hard to get back to where he was. He had one good IPL and he played all three formats for India. So he knows one good IPL what it can do. So I would still put a bet on Natarajan.
Hmm. All right. Anyone at all that we think may go unsold here in this list? Do you think even the likes of Umesh Yadav, GS, any worries that maybe someone like him they'll again come back to a little later? As we just look at that list, Mustafizur Rahman's another one.
I think most of them should get picks. Most of the overseas, yeah, we may have to wait for the overseas picks. They might get unsold, but I think when you look at it, I think all of them would definitely get good prices. Mark Wood is an interesting case, very injury prone. Is going to be playing the Test series in West Indies, and he'll go back to play the Test series in New Zealand. So generally, I know a lot of franchises speaking to them over the last 2-3 auctions. They all have shown interest in Mark Wood, especially Mumbai Indians. But whether they go for Mark Wood at a high price, or whether they want to get him cheap is something we have to see. And remember, again, you still have the likes of Unatkat, Sakaria coming up a bit later, Avesh Khan. So in this, you do have options, but you would want to kind of nail your 11 as fast as possible. So I think most people will get sold.
Right, we find out now. Fast bowlers as the auction resumes, and the order again is so important in all this, right? Who comes in first? You've got your wish list, whether you'd want a Deepak Chahar or a Shardul Thakur, and Natarajan on cue is the first player to come out of the hat. So let's see where the interest lies in Natarajan. We also spoke of this slightly romantic idea, JS, of a lot of the Tamil Nadu players perhaps coming to Chennai. I wonder if Chennai are interested in that because there are a number of talented players from that state that played for a number of other franchises without perhaps as much success. Natarajan, one of those, would fit well into Dhoni's plans.
100%, but whether they get him or not, we don't know. Remember, Chennai had always bid for Unatkat. They always want a left-arm seamer, but they've never got one. So they're not going to go chasing behind a left-arm seamer in the 11 if they don't get. If they do get, they'll definitely use him. So I think they will definitely bid for Natarajan. Whether they get him at the price point, we have to see. They did try for DK, they didn't get. So they still have three more players who are vying for that Tamil Nadu quota slot, which is Shah Rukh Khan and T. Natarajan, along with Vijay Shankar. But yeah, Natarajan is a pretty important skill set. Yeah, right. When he gets it right, we all saw how good he is. He kept Pollard and Hardik Pandya quiet, and that is a skill set which not many players have. So if he gets it right, he's going to be spot on. But if he's getting injured, and look, one thing about players like Natarajan and Varun Chakravarti, etc., they are not born and they're not natural cricketers. They've all groomed at a very late stage. So from a fitness perspective, always you're going to have problems with these kind of cricketers. So they started very late. They don't have the exact kind of training which cricketers usually end up having from a very young age. So that's always a question. But definitely there'll be a lot of interest.
So Natarajan, firstly, Sunrisers seem to be interested in him. Again, we'll have to see what they eventually get him for. But they took a conscious call, Wasim, not to retain a capped Indian option. If they felt like Natarajan just had a bad few, seasons because of injury, and that he is the real deal forward, surely there was a case for Natarajan to be retained. They went only for the uncapped duo of Umran and Abdul Samad. Natarajan, where would you see sort of his price reaching, especially with the Sunrisers? Could they have retained him, you wonder?
I think so. I think the only question mark with Natarajan is his fitness. I mean, whenever he's played IPL, he's done well. And he's one of those guys who does so well. I mean, Indian bowlers who bowl so well in the death. I see him going close to 5. I would be surprised if it goes more than that purely because he hasn't played and his fitness is in question. So will be interesting to see. He's got a lot of interest, which is good. I mean, for an Indian bowler's perspective, it's good.
We do have the Sunrisers busy with Natarajan. Bids with them, I think, at about 4 crore. And it looks like that is where T. Natarajan will be going. So he's going back to the Sunrisers at 4 crore. Fair then, Dan?
Yeah, I think that's a nice pickup. I think they obviously know him at his best. They know how to utilise him. Obviously, Dale Steyn coming into the team as well as a bowling coach could really elevate him as well. So I just think there's a comfort level in him and what he's provided for the Sunrisers, and they desperately need to pick some players. So they got one.
They also, we thought GS might change philosophy. Perhaps they spent a lot of years on Indian, a huge group of Indian fast bowlers. Deepak Chahar has come up. We'll come to that. This could be the big ticket player in this set. But we thought maybe Sunrisers will have to try something different. Maybe go for more overseas fast bowlers, different kind of attack now even without Rashid Khan. Natarajan, though, still fits into their plans, you think?
Yeah, Indian bowlers always. It's good to have a battery of Indian bowlers. It always helps. They have Puran and Kane Williamson now, who are kind of fixed in the top 6, so they're not going to go for any more overseas players. They need either an overseas all-rounder or a couple of overseas bowlers. So it's clearly the way they're bidding for Deepak Chahar. It also means they're going to go with an all-out Indian attack, which is fair, which is what they've always been doing. Remember, their most successful period was in 2015 to 2017 types. All teams are going to be looking at that. And whoever is willing to break the bank for Deepak Chahar is going to get benefited out of this. So Indian bowling attack is very key. It allows you to kind of balance your team a bit. Natarajan helps them do that. And let's see what happens.
Deepak Chahar,
Chennai will come swoop in at about 10 crores because you should have logically budgeted for about 10, 12 crores for Deepak Chahar, right? I don't think franchises would have budgeted less for Deepak. So let's see.
They're playing at 5.5 at the moment. So Hyderabad, who are now, I guess, looking to spend some of that money that they've got on reserve, along with Delhi Capitals, are interested in Deepak Chahar, who's still not found his place as a permanent fixture, Wasim, in India's white ball teams. A lot of people believe he's probably right there, if not up there, and should perhaps be a permanent fixture. When everyone is fit, where does Deepak Chahar stand in the pecking order for you?
In the Indian side, I think the only probably drawback in him is that he doesn't bowl too much in the death. He's one of those guys who bowl, bowl 3 overs up front and he remains 12 or 13 overs. So he's not somebody like Bumrah who's going to get used in all 3 areas. But Dhoni is one of those captain who uses him really, really well. So it's very important for Deepak to have a very good captain, who's handling him. Not everyone is MS Dhoni who extracts the best out of the players.
Interesting you say that, Dan. We know this theory, right? That Dhoni tends to get a lot out of players. He gets them to almost perform X amounts better than they would elsewhere. Moeen Ali said that as well in a number of interviews last year. Enjoyed playing under MS Dhoni. Not the first player to say that. Wonder if Deepak Chahar also is looking for that. Would he be the same with Rishabh Pant at Delhi Capitals? Maybe Kane Williamson at Sunrisers is a better match.
I think Dhoni just looks after his players in terms of he understands where they're at their best. And to Wasim's point, Chahar, 3 overs in the power play and avoiding the death has brought the best out of him. And his 3 overs in that power play are often crucial because he takes wickets, he swings the ball, and he remains aggressive through that stage. And so will he be asked to perform the same role when he goes to a different franchise? And that's the question. And therefore, does he offer the same value? I think he does. I think because he swings it early on, because he's got that batting potential as well, I think teams will talk themselves into him being a genuine 8, maybe even push him to a 7. But I still think he's at his best at CSK purely because of how Dhoni uses him.
And over 10 already, so 10.5. The Capitals are willing to splurge. They don't have anyone other than Anrik Nokia as a seamer. And the Sunrisers also just have Umran Malik, the uncapped Indian. I guess this is where you reach territory where you don't mind breaking the bank a little more. I guess, Dan, you've got to go for Deepak Chahar. Not too many bowlers.
I mean, who are you waiting for if you're not going to go for? If you've got all this money, why wouldn't you? So, I mean, it's at 11 now. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets past the Shankishan, actually. I think there's so much value in an Indian fast bowler, and then you can slide him potentially into the Indian all-rounder category. So the teams with money have to spend. I mean, where else would you use it apart from a quality player like Chahar?
Is he a more complete T20 package, Wasim, than a Shardul Thakur? Because it looks like these two are going to be the highest bids here.
I think Shardul probably offers you a little bit more. Like I said, Deepak Chahar, you need to use him before that 13, 14 overs mark. He's not one of those guys who bowls 140 and can bowl in the death, whereas Shardul can bowl in those three phases and obviously bats a little bit better than Deepak Chahar in this format, especially. So I feel Shardul obviously offers you more, but Deepak Chahar can pick you wickets up front, and that is the value that he brings compared to Shardul Thakur. Shardul Thakur doesn't bowl in the power play and doesn't pick wickets in the power play, whereas Deepak Chahar is out and out swing bowler, can give you wickets at the upfront, and obviously is a very fine player. The temperament that sets him apart.
Hmm. Deepak Chahar, and it does look like CSK have jumped in. So at 12.50, while the bid was between Hyderabad and Delhi, suddenly CSK are in at 13. I think GS just went off quickly, logged off, had a quick word on the table, and back he is now.
I think it was expected. They have to get one of Chahal, Shardul, or Harshal Patel. They missed Harshal. If they don't get Deepak, they'll go the same for Shardul. It's just that these two have been, there's element of recency bias as well. At the same time, they've been proven performers. Both have shown what they can do with the bat. I wouldn't still put Shardul in the same bracket as Deepak. I think Deepak's a notch slightly higher in terms of bowling. Maybe Shardul's a better batter, but Shardul somehow has done well under MS, but Deepak is consistently getting those wickets. Even if there's a slight element of swing, Deepak gets it. And if it's in Wankhede, you're going to get that. And even in Chennai, he's shown he can do well. So Deepak's skill set is very, very vital, like Trent bowls. If they get it right, they break open games. They win matches on their own. So now that they don't even need his batting. I know Chennai would use him at number 10 and not give him enough balls. But at least as a pure bowler, Chennai are looking, whereas the other teams also are looking at a batting skill. So that's what players like Chahar, you shouldn't force them to treat them as an all-rounder. Just treat them as their primary skill set. Whatever you get with batting is a bonus. For Shardul, I think the temptation would be to bat him at 7 and ask him to hit those sixes. When you start putting all those things on these batters, I don't know. Obviously, Wasim and Dan would be better to comment on that. Suddenly, pressure gets to them and they don't perform the way they have to. So, yeah, Deepak and Shardul are just going to be multi-millionaires if possible. Rajasthan are now in the bid.
Wow. 13.50, and you thought Chennai are happy, and suddenly Rajasthan have jumped in at 13.75. Quick look at the Rajasthan Royals balance purse, and it sits at 32.75. CSK are 34.85. So it's anyone's guess as to who might get them. Looks like Delhi Capitals were really trying to convince themselves to push harder for Deepak Chahar. May step out of it, but at 13.75, it is with the Rajasthan Royals, who, like I said, do not have a single Indian fast bowler yet among their set. And it's touched 14 crore now for Deepak Chahar. Fair enough, Dan?
I think so, but I think we talked about a lot of other teams' retention policies and whether Chennai actually offered something to Chahar because he was going to be so valuable. I think most people predicted him going for an incredibly high price, and whether Chennai made an attempt to retain him and whether they could have looked at him ahead of a Gaikwad or something like that, knowing that. I don't think a Gaikwad would have got to this sort of value at 14 crore. So it's fascinating to see what the discussions were prior to this. But I think Chahar's worth every cent, and whether he can perform in another franchise is the question.
I think it's a brave Indian player to go to Dhoni or N. Srinivasan or Stephen Fleming and say, "Nah, I'll take my chances at the auction." If CSK really wanted to retain him. But it's a fair point that you raise. Now, Ruturaj Gaikwad, GS, from what you calculate, was he the smarter retention? Because as Dan says, he may not have gone for this much. He also may have.
Yeah, I gave the same logic about Surya Kumar Yadav and Ishan Kishan, right? If Shreyas Iyer can go for 12, suddenly you think Ruturaj and Surya might also have gone for at least between 10 to 12, 10 to 13. So those are chances you take, and you don't know about when the player is going to come when you're actually making those retention decisions. That's one of the big challenges. Now, in the last time we had two marquee players, marquee sets. This time you just have one marquee set. So when players are retained, they don't know how much money they will have in the auction. So Deepak Chahar, they would have thought maybe we'll be in the marquee set. We can buy him back even if he goes for 10 plus. So these are things which auction dynamics have, the way the sets have been created. It's created an opportunity for Chahar and Shardul to rake the rewards, and that's what
So-
has happened.
Yeah, all right. And as we know, that CSK thoroughly enjoy a sense of familiarity, especially when their team's been winning, and that they have been winning. Champions have gone for Deepak Chahar, 14 crore, and he's back playing under MS Dhoni. Let's get a reaction. Wasim Jafar?
I think he would be very, very happy to be playing more than the price, probably playing under MS Dhoni and playing in the same bunch of guys. I think price tag obviously would have made him very, very happy. But I think MS Dhoni factor plays a very important role because he gets the best out of them. And he's got the best out of most of the players that he's played under him. So he would be very, very happy.
Yeah, that's now four straight players that they've picked today at the auction who form part of their 2021 side. So they're looking to just do what worked for them. Dan, 14 crore, fair enough.
I think it's as predicted. I actually saw him potentially going a little higher if another team could have stayed with Chennai, because I don't think Chennai were going anywhere. I think they were going to hang in there to the bitter end. So it's just continuing on a theme since day one for CSK, that they want to keep their players together. They trust a certain group of individuals, and they'll back them to the hilt. And I think they will try and complement these players, and they'll have to bring some new players in, because I can't imagine they can get Tucker as well. But they've continued on with their MO that continues to be successful for them.
I mean, you just feel like it doesn't matter that he's gone for 14 if he's gone back to Chennai, and whether if Deepak Chahar would have gone for 14, 15 to a new franchise, new captain, whether it would have been the same player, GS. But I think the Chennai fans would be absolutely fine with this. They wouldn't think that the price tag pressure is going to make any difference. Player like Deepak Chahar, who until last season was at CSK for 80 lakhs, is now 14 crore.
I think spot on. I was 100% sure that Chennai would go for Deepak or Shardul, whoever comes first. Deepak came first, and they got him. That's why they would have budgeted 10 plus for him. So the money was never the concern. Maybe they would have thought they'll get him for 10 to 12, but it's gone 2 crores more, which you can kind of adjust with some other pick. So they still have quite a lot of money to play with. To be very honest, you almost sorted your first 11. All your key roles are there. Spinners are also taken care of. They'll have the confidence that they won a last season without a wrist spinner, so they wouldn't want to force fit a wrist spinner for that. They'll just have a backup, couple of wrist spinners, maybe Karan Sharma, like Nagaraj said, just buy him and just keep him in the squad, and take it from there. So they almost have a first 11. They'll pick, I guess, a couple of overseas quicks, and I think they're kind of sorted. They have to find who's Shardul Thakur's replacement. I think that's the only slot they'll have to think about.
All right, fair enough. Now, while Prasidh Krishna is being bid, and it looks like it's a tussle between Rajasthan, Kolkata, and Lucknow at the moment. So I'll come back to Prasidh Krishna. But in the middle of all that, Wasim, Umesh Yadav has gone unsold. Didn't have a lot of interest even at the last auction. Picked up for a steal by the Delhi Capitals, but not a single franchise wants to pick him up even at base. You think that'll come back tomorrow, or surprised that Umesh Yadav doesn't get anybody?
I think he'll get picked later tomorrow maybe. But I'm surprised that the Indian seamers, not many people are showing interest because even if he's not your first 11 choice, I think he still makes the squad. And as and when you need him, because he's got an experience, he still bowls 140 plus. Even though he's been on a little bit expensive side, but he's still an Indian fast bowler. So I think he'll obviously people will show interest tomorrow. We'll have a wait and watch.
550 now, Prasidh Krishna, as the Lucknow team seem to be quite keen to have him. Any thoughts at all, Wasim, on whether the West Indies series would just up the price? I know it doesn't make decisions last minute, but when you know the guy has looked at the best we've seen of him, suddenly does that up the price just before the auction?
I think it does play a part. We've seen it before. The players who have done well just before the IPL suddenly are in high demand. And he's again somebody who's done well in the last IPL. He's done well in the recent series. So I mean, I'm sure it plays a part.
Same question, Dan.
I think franchises will try not to let it play part in their decision, but it just may be that tipping point that the 3 for a 4 for he got the other night, and just the pace that he bowled at. I think that'll just crystallise their decision making. But I think they'll, he fits a lot of bills in terms of Indian fast bowler, tall, fast. So look, he was going to get a good payday, irrespective of what happened in this last little series.
GS at 650 Rajasthan are in. So it's between Rajasthan, Lucknow seem interested. Now suddenly looks like the Gujarat Titans are keen too. Prasidh Krishna, you think walks into any of the IPL sides in their 11?
Yeah, again, the price tag is elevated because of maybe his recent performances and the fact that, remember, he did walk into the test team and walk into the Indian team because people felt that he has potential. His height is a big factor. He's a hit-the-deck bowler. And I remember in his first season, he had an excellent slower ball as well. So he has the tricks. And so the demand, the price tag is something I guess we have spoken enough about. We know why a player is getting the price he's getting, but this was expected. This was not. This is not by any means a big surprise.
I wonder if you're a Shardul Thakur, you just can't wait to come out. You don't want the set to almost lose its charm, or for resources to exhaust themselves before your name pops up. And whether that at all has any bearing, JS, on when they come up in the set, was Warner and de Kock's fairly bargain sort of deals a result of them coming last in their set, and could that happen in this set as well?
Yeah, I think Warner and Dhawan kind of interchange position. Things would have been slightly different. Similarly, Nicholas Puran got very lucky because people were pretty desperate for a keeper batter when he came, and we saw what happens if two teams continuously are bidding for a particular player. This is what happens. So that matters a lot. Ashwin, for example, got pretty unlucky, I guess, coming in right up front because people have to keep some money for the other big buys, right? So yeah, sometimes being marquee is also not ideal. That's what we kind of understand from these kind of situations.
Right, we're touching about 8 crore for Prasidh Krishna. And we'll have to wait and see now who the team that finally gets him is. If we just run through that set, gives us more of an indication of which bowlers are still to come in it. We are, of course, talking about set number 5 at the moment. Deepak Char has gone for big money already. Umesh Yadav has gone unsold. Natarajan's back at the Sunrisers, and Prasidh Krishna now being bid for. The other Indian seamers to come, Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, Shardul Thakur as well, soon enough. And there are some overseas members in this set too, the likes of Lockie Ferguson, Josh Hazelwood, and Mustafizur Rahman. So 8.25 crore is where Prasidh Krishna stands at. The Mumbai factor, potential flat pitches, Wasim. The Maharashtra factor, the fact that we might play a lot of IPLs here. Are we suddenly looking at an even greater importance on enough high quality bowling options, defensive bowling options than other years where you could have actually filled your team maybe with more spin or different sorts of attacks?
I think you would have gone for a higher price anyway. I mean, no matter where you would have played IPL, it's just that his recent performance would have upped his market a little bit. But he's a fine bowler. Like I said, he's at a decent IPL, and he's a consistent performer. Bowls well in the death. That high high arm action gives you bounce. It's harder to hit him. And again, that Mumbai factor, because they're going to play on red soil, so that is going to help him as well. So no surprises that he's getting chased by so many franchises.
Uh, if you become IPL commissioner at some point, Dan, and no one's to rule out the Rican, you're going to put a bit of a clock on these tables. Hurry up now, especially if it's nearing what, little past midnight in Auckland.
What's the optimum time? 30 seconds? A minute? How much they need
I
to
don't
make a
know.
decision?
The thing is, I think it's quite intimidating, for an auctioneer. And Charu Sharma is, of course, doing this last minute. But the minute you get an owner, significantly powerful man in his own right, put his hand up and say, "Give me a minute." How much can you actually give him? We'll find out. There isn't a clock that works on this, but yeah,
Shot clock.
would you
Shot
understand the
clock's a
time it
great
takes?
idea.
Yeah, like they
Yeah.
do in tennis. Yeah, you've got to make a bid within so many seconds.
Yeah.
Or are you happy for this to take as long as you
Go-
like?
no, I like Gotham's getting. He's moving them along. His franchise is bidding quickly, so Rajasthan seem to be stalling a little bit. But yeah, I like the idea of a shot clock. Maybe after the first 4 or 5 sets.
Yeah, we must remind ourselves that we are still only on set number 5. It's like the auction's been going on for a long time. But yeah, we've touched 10 crore now for Prasidh Krishna. So this is where I guess DS's point comes in, Wasim, on whether it's a disadvantage coming in early. If you would have thought between Mohammad Shami and Prasidh Krishna, Shami's a proven IPL performer, whether he would have preferred coming in a little later, perhaps, and that would have helped his cause.
I think he's also, somebody who's young. That makes a lot of difference.
Hmm.
Shami with age on his side, and obviously his participation, his injury status. Prasidh Krishna, he's young and somebody who's going to serve you well. I think that also plays, a lot of importance. So I feel those are the factors probably, and it does make a difference where you come into the auction. You come straight away, then obviously there are going to be, high demand. But if you come late, then it does make a difference.
Right then, he's gone. Then finally, 10 crore round figure, Prasidh Krishna to the Rajasthan Royals. So he becomes their first Indian seamer to get picked up in that team. So let's get a reaction on that. Dan, Prasidh Krishna to Rajasthan Royals for 10 crore, leaving them with a balance purse of 22.75.
There's obviously a bit of a potential player as well. They look at him for 3 years. They've seen the growth of him in the last little while, and obviously elevated selection towards in the Indian team. I think his numbers don't justify that amount of money, but I think the potential does. And I think when we're talking about Indian fast bowlers, how valuable they can be, his height, his ability, his pace, all those sorts of things means he was always going to get a huge payday. And whoever got him has obviously got a very good bowler on their hands.
Yes, one of the things they did struggle with was the Indian seamer department last few years. Well, they've struggled in a number of departments, in fairness, Rajasthan. But 10 crore, does Prasidh Krishna solve some answers?
Yeah, it was actually a very tight bid there. It was very curious, and it was very important that Rajasthan had to win that bid. When you look at their team right now, they do have a bunch of batters and a bunch of bowlers, not many all-rounders, and that's the strategy they've gone with. If they had given Prasidh Krishna to Lucknow, who were almost there, Lucknow would have had that really, really solid team base that they would have built. So I think it was a very important buy for Rajasthan. They have always struggled in that, and if maybe they by chance they get back Archer, it augurs well for them. But having said that, Bolt, Prasidh Krishna, two different kind of bowlers up front, one swing bowler and one tall bowler, which is why I think they have a good variety. Rajasthan's team is also shaping up pretty well.
Would you go with that, Wasim? Prasidh Krishna and Trent Bolt, new ball bowlers potentially. Are Ashwin there? Just thoughts on how the Rajasthan team is shaping up?
I think so. I think those three makes a good, first 5 bowlers that you pick. I think, they gives you variety. One left armer, one tall right hander. Ashwin, in his own, is a fine bowler. So looks good. Looks good so far for Rajasthan.
Lockie Ferguson's raced up to 6.75. One of the, you could say, unsung heroes of the IPL in the last couple of years. Whenever he's had a gig to do, he's done it for KKR, and he's quickly up to 7 crore. So I think that already puts him pretty high up on the list of what did Trent Bolt go for. Rajasthan picked up Bolt for 8. So the chance he may surpass that as well could be the most expensive Kiwi today, Dan.
It's always Kane. Got a long way to chase Kane. But he was,
At the auction.
at the auction, yeah. I think he might have that covered. I just see he's gone to 825. But
Yeah.
I mean, Lockie's a fantastic bowler. He's done so well. But once again, you won't see Mumbai or Chennai, I don't think, bid this high on these overseas fast bowlers. So it's a lot of money for a guy who has to play every game to give you value. He does have an injury track record, but if he's on the park, he's amazing.
Looks like Ashish Nehra is quite keen on him. Seems to have a significant input to the Ahmedabad franchise. Gary Kirsten is there as well. So the Gujarat team are keen. They've upped the bid for Lockie Ferguson to a little over 8. Bangalore's the other team that have him. So let's have a look at Bangalore's team options. They've got Mohammad Siraj and Harshal Patel already. Lockie Ferguson will be quite the addition. They seem to be going quite heavily on bowlers. So maybe GS learning what their worries were all these years, looking to go hard on bowling because they've gone up to 8.5 for Lockie Ferguson now.
Again, see, one thing is overseas fast bowlers. Even I like Dan. I don't know if they're worth so much because there's a lot of challenges with these kind of players. Yes, Lockie's had two very good seasons, one with Pune and the other with KKR, right? So he's actually done very well, but whether he'll be able to play those 14 games and continue to deliver for them, we don't know. So interesting. Royal Challengers have gone considering the kind of purse they have. Which again means that they're also looking to keep him in the first 11. His speed is something which a lot of players, Indian batters, tend to struggle with, and looks like all teams are rating Lockie extremely high. I'm trying to think if he didn't play the World Cup for New Zealand, right?
He was injured. He
was
in
injured.
the squad, injured, and then Adam Milne came in.
Yeah. I mean, well, first and foremost, it becomes really hard when Bangalore and Gujarat are in a bid war, because when I look at Ashish Nehra and Gary Kirsten on the table, I sometimes think that's Bangalore, and then you go to the actual Bangalore, which has Sanjay Bangar and Mike Hesson on it. So you just got to reacquaint yourself with these moving pieces, and suddenly it looks like the Lucknow franchise has stepped in. So GS mentions that Lockie Ferguson enjoyed his stint at RPS, at the Pune franchise owned by the same owners. And you also have Gautam Gambhir there, who's rated Lockie Ferguson very highly. We've had him on our panel for the last 2 or 3 seasons of the IPL. So Lockie Ferguson's gone to 10 crore. Now, what does that say, Dan Vittori? You expected him to do well, but 10 crore? That's pretty.
No,
that's
not
quite
10 crore.
something.
He's just sold to the Titans. So no, I didn't expect 10 crore. I thought he'd be a great buy around that 4 or 5 mark, and I think teams will get huge value out of him. But at 10 crore, it's huge expectations. So he's a great bowler, and he suits this format, obviously, and his pace is something special. And the slow ball that he's worked on so hard has been really effective. So he's going to be a great performer. It's just 10 crore as an overseas fast bowler. You need him to play every single game, and it's difficult for him with his injury record.
Right. If you look at the business Gujarat have done today, JS, I wonder what takeaways we make from that, because Jason Roy base price. Other than that, paid some decent money for now for Lockie Ferguson at 10. Otherwise, Mohammad Shami 6.25. There's already Rashid Khan there. So that's an interesting bowling attack coming along with Lockie Ferguson, Mohammad Shami, and Rashid Khan.
Yeah, Lockie and Rashid are pretty good if they can if Lockie can be used in the middle overs along with Rashid. That's a pretty good bowling attack. And then you have Mohammad Shami, at the power play. So still have to get some more Indian pace bowlers. So which was surprising. They had the money to buy Deepak Chahar maybe, but they didn't go for Deepak Chahar, which was very surprising from Gujarat. Maybe Wasim can tell us who Nehra likes among the Indian fast bowlers.
Yeah, go on, Wasim.
I think the Lord is still there in the kitty. So you never know.
Shardul. They're saving that on Shardul.
Let's see who Lord picks his own team.
Yeah. So Lord is going. Yeah, this is going to be the other way around now. Lord is going to start, throwing. Anyway, let's leave it there. Josh Hazelwood's come up at 5 crore now. He could, again, they're looking at CSK are just looking at going after everyone who was successful for them in 2021. So CSK are very much interested. Lucknow are in this as well. So having failed to secure Lockie Ferguson, even though they went quite high up on the bid for him, Josh Hazelwood. What is last year's IPL done for Josh Hazelwood, the T20 bowler? Dan, of course, also part of World Cup winning side now. But what is Hazelwood's place like now in the shortest format?
Well, I think it showed that his Test match performance can fit into a T20 format, particularly when he's used in the right way, which once again CSK did. So all he did was hit length for his first 3 overs, and because of his height and his pace, he was so effective. And then the rare times he sort of came back into the death or the back end of it, he often went to that as well, and he didn't really go to the Yorkers where potentially that's got him in trouble in the past. So him bowling the way he does in a Test match, used in that style, has made him incredibly successful and incredibly valuable at this stage.
Mumbai Indians have jumped in for Josh Hazelwood at 675. In the middle of that, the Delhi Capitals also came in. So it looks like the three, well, you could say respected franchises in the last 2 or 3 years with the squads that they've put together are in for Josh Hazelwood. 7 crore and counting for Hazelwood. Mumbai, I wonder if what Mumbai looking at here, who tend to be rather conservative in their fast bowling approach. GS, they seem to like Josh Hazelwood though.
Yeah, they were one of the first franchises to bid for Hazelwood way back, I think 3-4 years back. He did play the IPL, but they were the ones who got him. Again, that playing for which team, how you use him, all that matters a lot. So if you don't use Hazelwood the right way, Dhoni used him the right way. And to be fair, yes, he did well, but I think Chaha's impact is much more than a Hazelwood impact, right? And it was the pitches in UAE where he kind of did well. Again, I don't think at this price point you want to try to get Josh Hazelwood back. He's again going to be playing the Test series and ODI series against Pakistan. He's going to come back after a grueling series, so his workload we need to also keep in mind. All these things matter. Just picking a player who just performed well in the previous IPL in a particular team does not guarantee you success in another team. So yes, Hazelwood for Mumbai might get the best out of Hazelwood like Chennai did, but I think the price point is a bit too much. And from an economic standpoint also, Hazelwood's not that. We have to see whether he can manage Chinnaswamy, he can manage Wankhede, can he bowl with the wet ball. I think it was the finals of the World T20 where he kind of got hit all over the park, right? If I remember right, I think he had a pretty poor T20 World Cup final. So you'll have to see. All these players look good at 2 crores, Ronak. The moment the price point increases, I'm kind of always wary of all these performances like Josh and Lockie. Dan maybe could throw light on that, but the moment these bowlers go up to the price points they are, I feel personally none of them are really worth that much money.
You lose your value to the balance of the team, don't you? You slot in the overseas fast bowler who gives you so much because his performance obviously outweighs his value. Now, Josh Hazelwood at 8 crore is the performance he gave last year. Does that justify 8 crore? So that's a hard thing, and what it means to selecting the rest of your team. So, I mean, it feels like we've had this conversation every time a fast bowler's come up, or an overseas fast bowler's come up, or an overseas wicketkeeper. So those two things have been part of a similar sort of conversation, but it's. Yeah, it is difficult to build a team when you pay this much for an overseas fast bowler.
All right, as it turns out, though, the final bid that was a successful one has come from RCB. So Josh Hazelwood's going to RCB for 7.75 crore, which also adds to their fairly, you could say, expensive overseas contingent of Glenn Maxwell already retained at 11. Faf du Plessis picked up at 7.25. Or Wanindu Hasaranga at 10.75. And now you've got Hazelwood to add to that. So that's the makeup of the RCB bowling, Dan Vittori. Hazelwood, Hasaranga, Harshal Patel, and Mohammad Siraj. That's what the bowling looks like. Make sense? Hazelwood there, or still a crore or two too many?
Well, I think it is, but I mean that's a really good bowling lineup. It covers most bases. Now, like always, they have to find that all-rounder to give them some options. It looks like that means they're completely out of the Chahal race. So it's obviously sad for RCB fans who've seen Chahal as such an integral part for so many years. But they need to be able to complement those 4 bowlers, because those 4 bowlers are fantastic, but they'll only be as good as the 5th bowler that they can pick up.
Wasim, your thoughts as we look at that bowling attack for RCB and how it's shaping up?
I think it's shaping up nicely. Josh Hazelwood, fantastic bowler again. He's He's one of those guys who bowls up front, can pick your wickets, and then again bowl in the death. Value for your money, without a doubt. So it's shaping up nicely for RCB.
All right. JS, final thoughts on Hazelwood to RCB?
I'm wondering where's Punjab again. They haven't bid for a long time. They have a lot of money. It's completely different strategy from all the other years. So that's good to know. Punjab's keeping money. They're going to buy some low value picks, it looks like. So let's wait and watch. But Hazelwood, again, the same points at the price point. It's a bit too high for me. From an economy standpoint view, Hazelwood's good in certain situations, but he's not extremely. He's not shown the success in the death bowling as well. So price point pretty high, but a good bowling attack is definitely shaping up for RCB. And Dan, a quick one. I think it was 2014 auction or the one before that where RCB bought a lot of CSK players. They bought Albi Mokal, they bought Badrinath, they got Murli, they got Jakati. It seems to be going that way again. They got Faf, now they're getting Hazelwood.
It's chasing the winning model. So look, I mean, two quality players that they've picked up. But what did Chennai have them at 1.8 and 1 crore last year? So it looks completely different as at 7 and 8.
Yeah, up
Yeah.
2 crore Josh Hazelwood's base price last year, picked up after the auction, and then you also had Faf du Plessis at 1.6. Now, Mark Wood very quickly has gone up to 7 crore in all of this. Wood is another player who you're always wondering about availability with regard to the English cricketers and also fitness and injury. Has featured for CSK briefly before Mark Wood at 7 crore. Dan, Mark Wood?
I think it's the teams that missed out on Lockie and Hazelwood. There's obviously they've seen what's Mark Wood's most recent series is obviously the Test matches against Australia where he bowled incredibly fast. He bowled well and probably bowled a style that IPL teams think he can replicate in T20 formats. So look, it's a big ask once again with that injury status, the fact that he'll be coming off a lot of cricket with England to ask him to come in and do this. But teams see these bowlers at their best, and that skill set can be really impressive in the IPL. It's just once again the price points sometimes means it's hard to build a team.
Yeah, it looks like Mumbai are reinforcing what we believe of them, which they will not be on the point for an overseas quick, because at 7 they were in for Mark Wood. At 750 it's now with Lucknow, the new franchise, and the minute it went back to Mumbai, Akash Ambani was completely out of it. So they're not going to pay more than what they've decided. At 750 he's gone to the Lucknow Super Giants. So let's have a quick look at their bowling attack and how that's coming up. They did pick up Jason Holder as the all-round option, Quinton de Kock at 6.75. Other than that, the bowling is largely the all-rounders. There's Krunal Pandya, Deepak Hooda, and Marcus Stoinis to add to Holder, and Ravi Bishnoi was one of the players picked up by the franchise going into this auction. So Mark Wood at a decent price. Now, what's the take on that? Was he Mark Wood at Lucknow? Thoughts on that?
I think they make up a very good bowling attack with Jason Holder and Stoinis. Obviously, Stoinis is a part timer, but I think Mark Wood definitely gives you the 140 plus option. So they are shaping up really nicely with the squad they are bringing.
Could it have been an Indian seamer though? You just try to think and you look at that team, whether an Indian seamer would have been more valuable. There's still the likes of Shardul Thakur to come. Dan?
I think so. I mean, Adam Milne's still to come in the auction. Those sorts of bowlers. There's still a number of overseas bowlers that you could have waited to see where you're at after the Indian bowlers come through. So feel like we're repeating ourselves, but it does seem that. I mean, it'll be fascinating to see how these overseas fast bowlers have gone for huge money play out as the auction goes along, particularly with their injury status.
Yeah, Jess. I mean, we've talked about Lucknow and almost applauding the work they've done at the auction so far. Does this one seem a slightly odd buy in contrast to what they've done all day today?
Yeah, just before we started, you asked me about the fast bowling set, and I did tell you Mark Wood would kind of generate a lot of interest. One of the reasons is every year there are teams which want him because of his extra pace. We saw what happened with Henrik Nokia, right? He was fairly so successful. But When it comes to paying again at that price point, I don't think. Again, he'll be so overcooked after playing the West Indies series. There's no Anderson Broad, no chance of rotation there. Mark Wood's going to be playing most of the test matches there. And then coming in bowling in the heat of Wankhede at a 4 p.m. match and expect Mark Wood to come and deliver. I don't know. I'm not very convinced. Totally with Dan on that from the first. Mumbai also went out at 7. I think 7 is what they are willing to go maximum for an overseas pacer. CSK is not even bothering to bid. So KKR are not bothering to bid. SRH are not bothering to bid. I think these teams kind of understand that there is no point in investing on him rather than invest on a Sakaria or Unatkat and keep your balance up and running. So it's the new franchise which are getting these players who are getting excited by the speed and not. For every Nokia, you do have a Riley Meredith. So people need to understand that as well.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. Now, Bhuvneshwar Kumar's bid is up to 3.4 crore. And Mumbai Indians seem to be interested. Rajasthan Royals are tussling with them. Mumbai Indians looking for someone to partner Jasprit Bumrah. There's no other bowler on that list. A lot of eggs put in the Ishan Kishan basket. So they're going to have to try and nick a few bargain buys just to make them feel good. Wonder at what stage Bhuvneshwar Kumar feels like a bargain buy. 4 crore now. And I believe the Sunrisers are back and interested in Bhuvneshwar Kumar too, who they chose, of course, not to retain. Wasim, how do you see Bhuvaneshwar Kumar playing out? What's a fair price for him? Because it's already very quickly crossing 4 crore.
I think his recent form, Ronak, is not been impressive,
Yeah.
and that has been quite consistent. That it's not that one of games, but in the recent IPL, the recent internationals, he's not been at his best. So it's going to be a risky pick, but at least that he's an Indian fast bowler. So he gives you that option, and then when the overseas fast bowlers comes up like Jofra and the other guys will come up later on, but you do need Indian fast bowlers, and he's somebody when he gets it right, he gives you wickets. He bowls in the death. So he's got that experience. So no surprises. The teams are going for him, but it's a risky thing to spend too much money on Bhuvneshwar Kumar.
Well, he's gone back to the Sunrisers, which is very interesting. If you were trying to sort of build again, but they've got Natarajan and Bhuvaneshwar back, so that's two of the seamers they've had over these years. Dan, now is it a risky pick, Bhuvaneshwar Kumar? Could you again have sort of put your eggs in the basket and gone aggressively for a Deepak Chahar or a Shardul Thakur, who seem to be the kind of bowlers on their way up? Bhuvi, with respect, seems to be a bowler on his way down.
Now they just need to get Rashid Khan back to bring the whole gang back together. They'll be fine. They'll have a great team. I think there's safety in Bhuvanesh Kumar. I think they know what they can bring in, and at that price, I think any experienced Indian fast bowler who has had the successful track record as Bhuvaneshwar, I think is worthwhile. I think it's worth taking the risk for him at that value. So it doesn't rule them out of, I don't think, of any of the other Indian bowlers, but they'll like the fact that they've two pretty secure guys in Natarajan and himself in there already, and they can have a look at the rest as they come along.
So Shardul Thakur now has appeared in the auction, and with that, the cameras have turned to Punjab for the first time in a long time, which is what Gaurav Sundraman was asking. So maybe that's a play they've identified. Punjab have quite the balance purse still on them. 47.5 is significantly more than any other team now, because Sunrisers, after picking up Puran, Washington Sundar, Natarajan, and Bhuvaneshwar, are now down to 40. So Punjab enjoy the balance purse, assuming they're willing to spend all of it. And it looks like Shardul Thakur could touch double digits in terms of crores, GS?
Yeah, definitely. And what you need to kind of see is the next big buy is Yuzvendra Chahal. Apart from that, I don't see too many people have money to do a few more 10 crore plus buys, right? So I think Chahal is the only one. So if Punjab gets Shardul, I don't know if they'll be able to get Chahal, whether Sunrisers might leave out Chahal. Sunrisers have picked up Bhuvi and Natarajan, so they don't need Shardul. So I think Sunrisers have a very, very good chance of getting Chahal. So Shardul Thakur is going to be interesting. Ideally, again, sometimes we get carried away with his batting performances and we mix it up. In my personal view, his bowling has still not I don't think he's just cleaned up an attack, or he's not won matches for Chennai. Chennai have used him to kind of be a partnership breaker, and he's also got he also has a pretty poor economy rate. In a lot of cases, he's got hit a lot as well. He's not as accurate as what you would expect a fast bowler to be. I think Shardul's riding the wave of his performances for India in a T20 match, 4 overs. Shardul again can't be your lead bowler. You need to
Yeah, I
understand that
guess.
he's a
Yeah,
supporting bowler. Even for India, he's a supporting bowler. The moment you make him lead and expect him to do a Chahal-like performance, things could go very. So, personally, I wouldn't bid more than what they are currently bidding for Shardul, but who knows?
yeah. I think Wasim's a good person to just talk to about this, because there's a lot about Shardul that you want in your team, but again, this time you have to dictate a price for it. We're looking at Shardul Thakur over the years. He was at 2.6 crore, and you think for that you're all right. He can be your partnership breaker. Now you're going to probably invest a lot of money in him. Do you see his game at that point where he can lead an attack, Wasim, even in IPL cricket? We're already at the 8 crore mark for him, and sometimes his batting could be a distraction to try and tempt you to get him more.
I think so. I think his batting does detract you. He's one of those guys who's your third seamer. At most, he's your second seamer. He's definitely not your first option. And then he's a guy who will bowl one over here and one over there, and probably bowl one or two over in the death. But he does tend to stay on an expensive side. He's not somebody who's at best is going to give 15-20 runs and pick you 3 wickets on most occasions. He's one of those guys who's going to be on the high 30s. At times he'll touch 40s. And he's somebody who doesn't bowl 140. He's at best has 130 plus at most. So he's one of those guys whose third seamer can bat at number 7, number 8. So for him to spend, the money that he's going at is very, very surprising.
Yeah, Delhi and Punjab are fighting hard here for Shardul, and that's taken the way to 8.5. You have to keep looking at who he's going to be bowling with here, because with due respect to Shardul Thakur, it's a point we're making here. Dan, as I look at that Delhi lineup, except Andrik Nokia, no seamer yet. Mitchell Marsh is there as an all-round option. Akshar Patel as an all-round spin bowling option. And that Punjab team that picked up the services of Kagiso Rabada and the marquee set today have also Arshdeep Singh with them. So Shardul Thakur, you guess, might stand out more if he's got better sort of potency around him in the bowling attack.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think he's a complementary piece. You can't have him as the center point of your attack. So I think the fact that that he's been so successful at Chennai once again is he's been able to bowl in certain situations. He's been able to bowl. Well, Dhoni's been able to utilize him in the perfect scenario for him, and not even bowl him out if he doesn't need to. Whereas once he gets picked up at these other franchises, it's 4 overs in the toughest times, and the expectation is that he needs to be sort of 1 or 2 for 25 to 28, and he's not that sort of bowler. So you almost want these players to go back to Chennai so they can continue to be successful in their roles, because it suits them so well. But it's obviously not feasible when they do so well. They start to make a lot of money, which is obviously great for the individual.
10 crore, and it looks like Delhi Capitals are just keen. They're not having these long conversations on the table as, say, a lot of other franchises tend to. It almost seems like they've given themselves that budget, and until then they're going to keep bidding. So 10.25, it stays with Delhi, whose balance purse at this point is 34.75, so decent money there. Punjab have more money, but we'll have to see how much they're willing to spend. They've not traditionally, GS, they've not been a team to always spend as much of the 90 crore they've had, or has that changed in the last couple of years?
It's slightly changed. Traditionally, they don't spend that, but I think in such an auction, especially with 10 teams around, I think you'll kind of be forced to do that. So they'll get as close as possible.
10.25 and counting, though, Shardul Thakur.
A lot of teams are now making very profitable because the franchise fee is not there anymore. So you don't need to kind of save up this money. You can easily get the money back. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons teams like Rajasthan have gone on a splurge.
10.25. It looks like the Capitals are still keen. In fact, it's gone to 10.50 now. So Shardul Thakur seems to be lingering his way to a nice, neat couple of $1 million if he gets a few more. We'll see how it eventually ends. But 10.5 crores, a lot of money for Shardul Thakur. He's already got a payday, which is in excess of 3 times, 4 times, I think 5 times the amount. The Delhi Capitals certainly do want him. Uh, I wonder if there's a case to perhaps use Shardul Thakur differently to get more out of him. Whether this sort of price and this sort of role that you'll have for him, Wasim, would you be tempted to use the guy more with bat? We even discussed all of last season that maybe CSK could have used him as a pinch hitter. Would you at all be entering? Would those thoughts be entering right now in your mind when you look at how much you want to get Shardul?
You can use him, but you're not gonna get the best out of him. He's not your pinch hitter. Obviously, MS Dhoni used him really, really well because they had a lot of options with Deepak Chahar, Bravo, and Shardul, and they had the spinners. So any new franchise that he goes to, they'll have to use him really well, and he needs to suit that captainship style. Need to suit him. He's definitely, going to have a very big payday. He just got married this few months back, so he doesn't mind that.
Hmm. Oh yeah, wouldn't we all? Wouldn't we all? Nice big payday a few months after you're married. Oh gee, change our world. Anyway, 1075.
It'd be interesting
And
to see Shardul and Deepak Chahar watching this together in the hotel with the Indian team. It's pretty
yeah,
crazy how Ishan Kishan, Shardul Thakur, Deepak Chahar,
yeah.
all of them are.
I think it's fair to say that the drinks are on them at Kolkata in the hotel they must have checked into. Tonight it's going to be the three, and there are going to be some very expensive bottles being ordered if a party is indeed being thrown. So he's gone to the Delhi Capitals. So that's a big story now. Capitals have spent 10.75 crore on the services of Shardul Thakur, who will play alongside his Mumbai teammate in Prithvi Shaw. There's also the likes of Andrik Nokia there. If you look at the rest of that bowling attack, Akshar Patel is there as well, and the all-round option of Mitchell Marsh. Let's get a reaction. How does Shardul Thakur look at 1075 with the Delhi Capitals? GS?
Bit too high
Hmm.
uh, for Delhi Capitals. I think if it's for some other team, maybe some new team, yes, but Delhi Capitals, I don't know. So obviously he's not going to lead the attack, but I'm very, very skeptical about Anik Nokke coming through this time. He's taken a huge break on injury. So we don't know. He's not even playing for South Africa. He's likely to come back in March. So he's not going to be available for the first few games. So is Shardul going to be your lead bowler? I don't know. So we have to wait and see. They didn't bid for any other Indian fast bowler yet. Delhi Capitals bowling may not be as strong as what it was over the last few seasons, and we know that bowling is what kind of gets you through such tournaments. So uh, I think Delhi could have maybe been better off actually buying Bhuvaneshwar and Natarajan rather than a Shardul for 10 crores.
Hmm. Dan?
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it. But I think all these expensive players will be judged by the bowling attack that teams put around them. So I think we're looking at them as individuals or as a duo in terms of Delhi, with only having a couple of bowlers in their team at the moment. So I think once that squad is fully formed out, then we can actually work out whether a Shardul Thakur is worth that amount of money and whether it fits into exactly what they want to do. So seems like a lot of money, but he may look really good once Delhi have filled out their squad.
Yeah, back-to-back bids actually for Delhi Capitals. Wasim, they've got Shardul Thakur at 1075. They've also picked up Mustafizur Rahman at his base price of 2 crore. I think that was the base price. So back-to-back pace bowling signings for the Capitals. How does that look now? When Andrik Nokia, GS brings up the point around the uncertainty of his fitness, and now you've got Mustafizur Rahman and Shardul Thakur there.
Yeah, they've got two seamers, two foreign seamers, and then Shardul. So I mean, they're all three pretty good now. Pretty balanced attack. So it does look good for the Capitals right now.
Right, Mustafizur Rahman going to the Delhi Capitals. So that wraps up the fast bowling set. Right, I think we've got this one set coming up now, which is the spinners set, which, quite frankly, is the set to watch out for. But well, we could either take a break now and come back and see how the spinners have gone. Dan, you're right. You're going to be with us a bit longer.
Oh, they're coming up now from going by my TV. Adil Rashid's just popped up, so I'm in. I've got no choice.
No. Let's do this then. Let's probably knock off the spinners. Let's hope it breezes through, because Yuzvendra Chahal's the last of the really key, you think, signings that we're going to look for. So let's go straight into this set. Adil Rashid's popped up now. Interesting choice Punjab made last time was seem to get Adil Rashid when they had a number of spin options. Didn't quite play him as long. He has such a contrasting sort of effect in international cricket, but not so much in the IPL in the limited opportunities that we've seen.
Yeah, he's only played one game last season and then he
Hmm.
was dropped after that. It does surprise me that not many teams go after him in the IPL because he's a proven performer in the white ball cricket for England team. And he's one of the fine bowlers now that he bowls in the power play as well for them. So it does give you a lot of choices. So I would like to see a lot of interest from
Yeah.
franchises for him because he's a proven performer at international level and even in franchise cricket.
Unfortunately, that hasn't happened right now, at least. So he's gone unsold. Maybe tomorrow we'll see some interest from Adil Rashid. For now, nobody for Rashid. Uh, Mujib's come up next. Mujib's an interesting one. Seems to have tapered off the interest that he earlier enjoyed in T20 when he just come about. Seems to still play a lot of leagues around the world. IPL, perhaps he's not at the happiest of time at Punjab, or towards the he was picked up by Sunrisers. Didn't get much of an opportunity there either. Dan, Mujibur Zadran, would you still be keen on him?
I think you'd have to wait for the second time round. I think you have plenty of options to understand what your overseas spin bowling requirements are. I think once again, I think he can be extremely effective used in the right role, and I think when he's been used in the power play or that opening overs, and he's been able to swing the ball or actually drift it a little bit more, I think that's when he's been quite effective. So. That's when he's at his best, but I'm assuming he'll go unsold and we'll see him tomorrow.
Yes. Tell you what's happening. I think the franchise, if you give them a choice, they'd say bring up the Indian leg spinners first.
Yes.
Then we'll figure the rest. But what's happened now is we've seen Adil Rashid, Mujib, and now Imran Tahir pop up one by one. So they might all have to just almost be victims of the same illness, which is leave the overseas spinner out and come back to him later. Tahir, of course, the oldest player, as GS told us at the start of the day, at 42 in this auction. We'll have to wait and see if Tahir gets a gig. Has enjoyed.
We want Chahal.
Yes, Dan.
Give us Chahal.
So Tahir's gone unsold as well, right? Now, if Adam Zampa comes up next, he could fall victim to this too, because we got 4 overseas spinners in this set, and you've got 3 Indian spinners. That's Yuzvendra Chahal, Rahul Chahar. In fact, 4: Amit Mishra and Kuldeep Yadav. So you got 4 and 4 in this set. Kuldeep Yadav has popped up. Very interesting now what Kuldeep Yadav's place would be. Completely out of favor with the Knight Riders towards the end of last season. And Wasim, we saw yesterday, even though there was quite the contest with him and O'Day and Smith, you thought Kuldeep was bowling quite well as he finds his way back into the ODI team.
Yeah, I think, lately he hasn't had the kind of success that he had at the first half of his career. I think, the batters have found him out a little bit and the mystery isn't a mystery anymore. And then he does fall onto the expensive side. Even in that one-day game, I think he leaked a lot of runs. So that is probably one of the reasons I would see that, not many teams might, go for him. Even if they go for him, I don't think he'll be the first choice spinner.
We've seen a bid made for Kuldeep. So he's the first player that's actually being bid for in this spinner set that's come up. Dan, Kuldeep Yadav, 1.4 crore and counting.
Yeah, I find it hard to get a read on him because he just haven't seen him bowl for such a long time. But obviously, from where he was with KKR to where he was to the end of last season, where he wasn't in any favour, and he seemed quite disgruntled. And I think he even made some comments in the media around where he's at. So it'll be interesting. He obviously needs a fresh start. He needs to go somewhere else and see if he can rediscover that form. The fact that he's back in the Indian team obviously shows that the national selectors are backing him, so there's no reason why there shouldn't be a franchise team that thinks they can get the best out of him as well.
Probably key, GS, where he ends up. We know he's spoken a lot about the kind of captain that he likes playing under, and he enjoyed a large part of his success, under an MS Dhoni or even in franchise cricket under different captains. But fresh start, maybe just what Kuldeep Yadav needs in the IPL.
Yeah, in fact, I've been vouching that he should go to CSK because that's where he would do very well. Dhoni knows how to use him. He's happy to kind of bowl under him. And CSK need a kind of spinner, as in at least in the squad. They don't have anybody. But we have to wait and see if Chennai can get him. Kuldeep is a very interesting case. Gambhir, remember, was the person who kind of launched Kuldeep early on during Champions League when he picked up for KKR. So whether he keeps the faith on Kuldeep, I don't know. But I think Kuldeep has a lot more to offer. He'll be pretty useful against overseas players. That's how I look at using Kuldeep against overseas players. He could be very, very handful. A lot of players don't pick him very easily. So, yeah, I guess he's undervalued personally, if you ask me. But again, people are going on recent form and uh, just fact that he's kind of out from the radar.
Well, the captain he'll get to work with is going to be Rishabh Pant now, because Capitals have been busy in the last couple of sets, have picked up Kuldeep Yadav for 2 crore, and they're very thrilled by it. A large part of their purse was strung when they picked up Shardul Thakur, so they're looking for some decent picks at a couple of crores. Kuldeep Yadav is one of them. I wonder if you share that sort of excitement, Dan. Kuldeep Yadav at 2 crore to a Delhi side that already have Akshar Patel as a spin bowling option.
Yeah, fantastic buy. I think we talk so much around whether teams have paid too much for certain players, but when you get a buy like this, I think it's win-win for the franchise. There's no pressure to actually play him. If it doesn't work out, then you can move on quickly. But if it does, then you've got an international domestic bowler who can offer so much to a franchise. So it's a great buy for Delhi.
Wasim, would you share that as well? Perhaps Kuldeep Yadav, where he is in his career right now, a bargain price may do him some good. He was at decent money at KKR last few years at nearly 6 crore. This time he's gone for 2 crore to Delhi. Might just be good for him.
I think it will be good for him. Akshar is there, and then if he gets some games, and if he does well at the first few games, I think that is going to help him. This T20 again with the West Indies holds a lot of importance if he gets any game time. He's definitely has got quality. There's no doubt about it. But I think the confidence need to come back again.
GS, Kuldeep, can you see him and Akshar playing in the same 11?
Yeah, why not? I think different skill sets. The spinner and Akshar is very hard to hit, so they'll have to attack Kuldeep, and who knows, that could be very beneficial. So, yeah, as long as I think from Kuldeep's point of view, he'll be hoping to just land up and in the playing 11, get some game time, and maybe see where it goes. Maybe he gets a hat trick or he does very well against West Indies. Suddenly his stock will rise and people will be like, oh, maybe we missed Kuldeep. Who knows how things pan out? People do have off days, and as we speak, Delhi are bidding for Rahul Chahar as well. So people want options.
Yeah, that's after, of course, Adam Zampa has also gone unsold. So I guess the overseas spinners still not, or the overseas wrist spinners still not of large interest. We'll see tomorrow if some of them come back. Of course, gone are the days of Dan Vittori, right, Jess? Where overseas spinners.
Exactly. Hasaranga is a mystery spinner. He doesn't come under the overseas spinner category.
Yeah. Now Rahul Chahar is here. Interesting on Rahul Chahar, Wasim, who of course made the T20 World Cup side ahead of Yuzvendra Chahal, and things haven't gone well for Indian cricket in T20 in that World Cup. But Rahul Chahar, where do you see his demand? Is he going to be a high demand player? Sunrisers seem very keen on him.
I think he's a very fine bowler and somebody who's done well at the IPL. I think Rohit has used him really well at Mumbai Indians. Definitely, I would say that not at par with Yuzvendra Chahal, but definitely a fine bowler and somebody, a leg spinner obviously is going to be in high demand, and I see him having a good payday.
Where are we now in terms of numbers, GS? Just how much you can spend on players like Rahul Chahar? Is Chahal the only other player likely to get this really big signing, or even is that reduced after the kind of money that's been spent? What's the math at the moment?
No, I think Punjab and Hyderabad are pretty well placed. Titans also pretty well placed. All the others are in the 20s, and Bangalore and Lucknow are in the between 10 and 20. So Hyderabad and Punjab can go a bit more heavy. I think Chahal, Shah Rukh Khan, Liam Livingston, these guys are players who offer some good skill set. So in a way, they'll actually get them for much cheaper than what they would have maybe anticipated initially. So So having a bigger purse right now is not such a bad idea, especially for a team like Punjab who have a base. But Sunrisers, for example, they don't have that kind of Indian batter. So maybe a Rahul Tripathi is someone which both these two teams will go after, both Punjab and Hyderabad. So maybe after Chahal, you may not see too many 10 crore plus bids. He could be the last of the 10 crore plus bids, but you definitely still see some very, very good middling buys.
Yeah, Mumbai Indians have jumped in for Rahul Chahar, and Delhi Capitals seem keen too. So Capitals just, I think, are having fun right now. They're keen to pick up Rahul Chahar even after having quite a few bowlers that they spent on. 2.8 is where the bid lies at the moment. Dan, what's a fair reflection for a Rahul Chahar? Are you really willing to go hard at him? Because there are not a lot of Indian leg spinners other than Chahal that are up for grabs.
I think this will grow this bid. I think the teams will be just, if Chahal had come up first, then they would have gone aggressive for him, and now they're going to just take almost a sneaky chance at Chahar, and if they get him, they'll be happy. If they don't, then they'll move on to Chahal and bid aggressively. So I see him doing pretty well at this. I think he might get to the 5 or 6 mark.
Well, if he is to get there, it's going to take its time. It really seems to be taking its time because we're at 320 right now, and it looks like the franchises are taking their own sweet time. Remember, as far as the auction rules go, I think we had GS from what the BCCI released up to set 9 that we could go today, if I got that right.
97.
Sorry, 97. Yeah, so 97 is set 11 and possibly set 12, time permitting. I don't think that's going to happen. So we've still got quite a few sets to go after this, but we'll find out as to what the extent at which this goes. So Punjab are still in this. It's going to about 3.5. Just having a look at what Punjab have done so far and what their spin options are. You're looking at, well, nobody at the moment. So they certainly are in the market for a spin bowler. What is CSK winning last year without a wrist spinner done for the place for wrist spinners, Dan? In the IPL, we still saw Adam Zampa have a big role to play for Australia. Hasaranga, Shadab Khan, they all had big roles to play in the World Cup. But has the place of the wrist spinner somewhat changed in the last year or two?
Potentially in the IPL, but I think you've seen the resurgence of Chahal. I thought he had a fantastic year last year. Around the rest of the world, leg spinners still thought of incredibly highly, and they're still valued. I mean, Tahir in the 100 was fantastic. So there are still franchises that see the value. I think Chennai once again break the mold because of the balance that they have and the requirements that they needed, and their bowling attack was so strong without that leg spinner. And the fact that they still had Tahir in their squad, I think, allowed them to be confident to make those decisions. They could bring him in at any stage. So I don't think the leg spinner will be undervalued, particularly Chahar and Chahal. I think they'll do exceptionally well.
Right. 4.2 crore as it just goes really slowly between the Mumbai Indians and Punjab Kings. So okay, let's have some fun, really, because that's all we can do is we wait to see where this ends. Can you imagine what the chat is? Dan's the only one who's been on that table before. GS, maybe you can as well. What exactly do you tell each other? You're willing to go 4.2, 4.4, 4.6. For either you've been told, yeah, we're going to go up to 5 for him, and then you don't need to keep talking. But what do they keep saying?
I think from my perspective, it will be around a couple of teams never thought they'd be in this position to actually bid for him, and so then potentially the planning's not quite there. They've seen him at a price at 2, 2.5, 3. It's stalled. Let's have a little go at it, see where we get to. Oh, we're still in at 5. Should we keep going? So I think the teams that potentially haven't thought about him as a viable option have jumped in there, and now they need to make some decisions, and that's probably why the discussions are going on.
So this has happened enough times in your experience that you don't think you would be in a position to bid for someone, and then you are?
Yes, I mean the best example we had that I can remember was Quinton de Kock, and we just thought he was going to be out of our price point, so we'd left him off a lot of strategy. We'd moved in another direction, and all of a sudden it looked like he was going to sell for 2.4 crore. So we jumped in there, and then I think we got him for early 3s, and that changed our whole strategy around other options. So I think it can happen, and I think you've got to have the ability to be fluid in those situations, but you got to be prepared for the consequences of it, good and bad.
Rahul Chahar is at 4.8 and counting. This is, I think, the longest it's taken. Seems to be some sort of clarity that Neswadia is trying to gain from the Punjab table, following these pictures without sound at the moment. So I don't know what exactly is going on, but we'll have you covered on the live auction blog. 1.9 crore is what Rahul Chahar was uh, at at the Punjab Kings. The bid has touched 5 crore. Looks like there's some sort of chaos. Cheers. Anything that you're picking up that I'm not?
No, I think they're talking with the present. I think too much time given for a particular franchise to bid, I guess, which Punjab's not happy about. So there is some pressure on Charu Sharma, is
I
what
mean,
I gather.
you've got to sympathize for him. He wasn't expected to do this role, and in extraordinary circumstances, it's happened. But no, we certainly do. We can understand that it's taking so long. I don't think anyone's taken this long. So this has been the most dragged on bid all day today. Seems like Rajasthan Royals have entered the fray too at 5 crore. I'm just having a look at what their balance per their squad looks like. They've got Ashwin as the lone spin option, so there is room for another spinner. You think? Wasim, how much is spin going to play a role in Maharashtra? If we are to assume the IPL is going to be over here, we have seen at times that that Mumbai Indians are even okay to not feel Rahul Chahar in their 11 and maybe bring in a Jayant Yadav. They don't necessarily have the leg spinners place secure. What do you see? How do you see that going?
I think leg spinners will definitely play a role. The wrist spinners will play a role. There's no doubt about it. Like I said, the red soil will play an important role. And Mumbai have always had Rahul Chahar, and they've always also had Krunal Pandya, Jayant Yadav later on. But I think the Maharashtra side definitely will aid spin, and that is the reason why teams will be going for the leg spinners.
I tell you what, this seems like the first kind of pick where the team that's picked him up isn't very happy because Neswadia seems very annoyed. Eventually, Rahul Chahar is going to the Punjab Kings. So Anil Kumble has a leg spinner to work with, 5.25 crore. We'll get more details. I'm sure our live blog will have it covered on exactly what went down there. But 5.25 crore going to Punjab Kings. Wasim, thoughts?
I think it's a fair price. He's a good performer, and he's going to be one of the main bowlers, and he's a proven performer in the IPL. So goodbye for somebody. Ravi Bishnoi last year he was there. Murugan Ashwin was there. So good spin attack to start with.
Chahal's come up, so we'll come back to him in a second. But Dan, that Punjab side now, Rahul Chahar, Kagishwar Rabada, Arshdeep Singh. How do you see that bowling coming along?
Yeah, I think they're getting there slowly, and I think Rahul Chahar's a great boy. I think he's a fantastic bowler. May not have had quite the success back end of last year, and obviously through to his Indian stuff. But I still think he is the sort of bowler that can be highly effective in IPL. So I think that's a bargain. I think that's a good buy, and probably because of the fact that teams were waiting on Chahal, they were reticent to push too hard on him.
Would you qualify that as a bargain, GS, from your calculations? 5.25 for Rahul Chahar?
Yeah, definitely. I expected him slightly more because, again, you don't know what you're getting with the other kind of players. Murugan Ashwin, Shreyas Gopal, Rahul Tewatia, maybe someone teams are looking at. And looks like Delhi are again going for Chahal as well. I don't know why Delhi want Kulcha back, I guess. So, but I'm sure they'll lose the bid and we'll have to wait and see who gets Chahal. Sunrisers also need some spin. They have Washington Sundar. And I'm looking at Gujarat. They have Rashid Khan. They don't need a spinner. Lucknow and have Bishnoi. Hyderabad need a
Sunrisers have to
spinner.
get him, don't they?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
Mumbai.
Sunrisers,
Have to get him. Yeah.
it looks
Even
like the
Mumbai
natural.
need a
It looks
spinner.
like the natural pick though for Rashid Khan, and they've been a team that's needed their spinner to play such a big role for them. Mumbai Indians, if you look at their buying, they don't have a single bowler yet. So if this is a toss-up, who wants him more? Which team needs him more, Dan? Mumbai Indians with no spinner at all yet, and who do know how to play without a wrist spinner, but in a different team, and Sunrisers, who've only got Washington Sundar so far.
I would say Sunrisers, but Mumbai, they may not have played with the wrist spinner, but they've lost Krunal Pandya as well. So that will mean a big hole in what they in the style that they're used to playing. So I think Chahal will become very popular, but I must imagine that Sunrisers is just going to come out on top with their purse being able to be a little bit more forceful than the others.
Yeah,
Well,
it
we
does
do
make
see-
sense for you don't want to give Mumbai Chahal as well, right? They already have Bumrah, and you don't want to make them stronger. So, for the sake of the league, I hope that Sunrisers get Chahal.
Yeah, well, interesting this because you do have Rohit Sharma who's taken charge of the white ball team, and Yuzvendra Chahal, whose promise, whose form has just soared up ever since, ironically, he was left out from India's T20 World Cup squad. 575 is where the bid stands with the Sunrisers Hyderabad. Uh, Wait and see if that's indeed where Chahal goes up, but fair to spend crazy money on a Chahal, GS, from your calculations, 10 plus, 12 plus, even if it comes to that.
Yeah, but I think he's unlucky coming in so late after Rahul Char. If he had come earlier, maybe Punjab also would have been in the race. Looks like Sunrisers might be out of the race as well. So this is again a big surprise. Chahal and Rahul Char kind of getting a similar amount. Uh, I would have ideally expected Chahal to go 10 plus. Let's see, still not over, but uh, I think it's just where he is coming through in the auction. A team
Am
like
I to understand?
RCB can actually afford Chahal still. So
Am I to understand that the bid is still with Mumbai? I mean, 6 crore. It seems like it's just stalled, and the Rajasthan Royals have jumped in. So it doesn't look like the Sunrisers are going to spend more than that. Now, Dan, does that surprise you?
They've got to come back into it. I think this this has to be a tactic. Maybe they're not going to spend their purse this year.
Yeah, Wasim, would you go with that? Looking at Sunrisers and how it's shaping up, there's Washington Sundar, there's Natarajan and Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, but they've got the muscle to pick up Yuzvendra Chahal. Surely he's the most high profile, high impact spin option or bowling option there is left now.
I know I'm surprised, with their strategy. They've all got the Indian bowlers, and they are still not interested in Yajwinder Chahal. So that, I mean, that their strategy, don't not able to understand. So it's interesting to see what they buy at the end of the day.
625 is where Mumbai went up to. At 650, Akash Ambani says no. So Mumbai have given themselves a cap on how much they want to spend for a Yuzvendra Chahal, who at the moment seems like he's headed to Rajasthan at 650, unless someone else returns,
So-
unless some Sunrisers come back. And that's where he goes. Wow. So is this a real surprise? Because we were really expecting Yuzvendra Chahal on a big payday. We knew he's gonna come in this set, which would perhaps reduce his chances, but 650. We've seen a lot of other players go for some absurd money. Let's get a reaction. GS, 650, Chad.
yeah, very similar to that of Warner and Peacock. This is a big shock considering there are hardly any spinners available. Maybe teams have kind of messed up their plan A initially. They spend more than what they would have thought for certain players. Uh, huge surprise. Chahal's been very good. He had a slightly off time in the middle, but then he came back strongly in the last IPL. And like Dan keeps saying, a player who does well in Chinnaswamy ought to be respected a slightly lot more. I find this very surprising that Chahal's gone, and Rajasthan now have Chahal and Ashwin and Bolt, and they're picking up a very good team there.
Yeah, not to mention Prasid Krishna there as well. So that's a decent bowling attack that's coming together. And if the IPL is to resume home grounds from next year, then he wouldn't mind bowling at the Savai Mansingh Stadium in Jaipur. Certainly bigger boundaries than what we've seen at Bangalore. So let's get reactions from Dan and Wasim to Wasim. Quite the team that Rajasthan put together, 6.5. They think they'd be pretty pleased with Yuzvendra Chahal at that price.
Yeah, I think that's a steal. To be honest, I expected Chahal to go for a lot more. I'm surprised that Hasaranga got 10 plus and Chahal hasn't got. Who's a proven performer, and his
Hmm.
recent form as well. Is pretty good. So again, it's damn surprising.
No love for Amit Mishra either, Dan. And Yuzvendra Chahal just 6.5. The spinners haven't gone for that much.
No, I mean it's a great buy. I think, as you said, Rajasthan are slowly starting to fill out their team, and Chahal is it's fantastic. Is such a complementary piece to that because of how well he's bowling. So I'm incredibly surprised that Sunrisers weren't in the mix for him. I thought that he would be the sort of player that they would need once again fulfill that hole that Rashid Khan had left behind. So Yeah, I think teams will walk away from this going, oh, maybe we could have gone for Chahal. He probably wasn't in a lot of teams' plans because of the expectation that he's going to go so high. And then when he popped up there at 6.5, I think teams would have jumped at that before the auction.
Right. Well, this has thrown up a few surprises in that set as the auction. If you have to just recap what's happened since the auction resumed, we've been on for nearly 3 hours now, so it's fair for us to take a bit of a breakthrough. But just to recap, Ishan Kishan, big money. Deepak Chahar as well, big money. Shardul Thakur's had a pretty big payday. We knew those were likely to happen. But as we just look at how the fast bowlers firstly went, Chahar back to CSK were hell-bent on getting him back. Prasidh Krishna has gone to Rajasthan. Delhi have been busy too. Shardul Thakur and Mustafizur Rahman back-to-back. So they've spent a good amount of money there. Hyderabad have picked up the services of Natarajan and Bhuvneshwar Kumar yet again. Lucknow paying a lot of money for Mark Wood. With their first, you could say, questionable buy of today. Otherwise, they've been hailed as someone who franchise that run great business today. Outside of that, Lockie Ferguson, big payday for him too. 10 crore going to the Gujarat Titans. Right, we're going to take a breather now. But spin bowlers, just to recap, only 3 out of the 8 actually going. Kuldeep Yadav, couple of crore to Delhi. Rahul Chahar and Yuzvendra Chahal, as we expected, would get bids, but we are surprised as to how little they've gone for. Chahar just over 5 and Chahal 6.5 to Punjab and Rajasthan, respectively. Right, we're going to take a bit of a breather now. Come back in a little while, maybe the end of the auction, and wrap things up. So I hope Dan Vittori's got enough coffee stored up. Wasim Jafar, we can all do with some tea and snacks. So let's take a break, shall we? And wrap things up at the end of the auction day. Still quite a few players to come today. So join us in a couple of hours. And the live blog will have you covered on ESPN Cricinfo. Join us then at the end of the day for TVS Eurogroup presents ESPN Cricinfo Auction Day powered by Kisma Gaming.